We're at the end of April, so you've kind of got that spring and summer overlap of the beers coming out right now. So that's going to be their roster of their craft beers that they're churning out right now. So you're going to have some great stuff at Riverbend Liquor and Wine. Great customer service, a speedy drive-through window. Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street. They're behind the bank. Sometimes Google Maps will take you to their old location across the street. Well, that is an empty lot right now, so you cannot get anything from the empty lot. But if you look right across the street there's Riverbend Liquor and Wine right behind the bank. Beautiful, fantastic location. Again, just speed through the drive-thru. And I say speed through the drive-thru because they're going to do that for you. Go on in, tell them you want, a bottle of Garrison Brothers, and they do everything short of just throwing in your car as you roll through. That's how fast the drive-thru window is at Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive, North 19th Street. Check him out on Instagram.
1, 2.
I'm in love with a man named Rudy. I'm okay with that. He knows exactly what I want. Keeps me coming back. Cooks breakfast, lunch, and dinner for me. Does the dishes too. I'm in love with a man named Rudy. Last name Barbecue. It sure is easy to fall in love with Rudy's tasty oak smoked barbecue.
Next in line.
Cars priced right both day and night. At Richard Car in Texas. Trucks built for you, red, white, and blue. At Richard Car in Texas. Cars that zoom with lots of room. At Richard Car in Texas. Count on us, a dealer to trust. At Richard Car in Waco, Texas.
Did you know that 1 out of every 4 men have symptomatic low levels of testosterone and don't even know it? And if you think you're too young to worry about it, guess again. Low T levels can make you feel tired and grumpy, cause weight gain, and wreak havoc on your sexual desire and performance. Petty Clinic Low T can set up same-day blood screening and results, so if you're tired of being tired, I challenge you to man up and Google search Low T Waco or go online pettycliniclowt.com. It's a private clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Affordable, only $150 a month, includes lab work, office consultation, testosterone injections, follow-up visits compared to $395 a month in Dallas or Austin, and you don't have to fight the traffic. Petty Clinic Low T as board-certified physician consultations will provide the best form of brand-strength testosterone available. Contact Petty Clinic Low T today, just off Highway 84 and Old Hewitt Drive in Woodway. Petty Clinic Low T, helping men become the high-performance men they deserve to be. PettyClinicLowT.com or Google search Low T Waco.
In the market for a quality metal building? Since 1943, Pioneer Steel & Pipe has helped Central Texas residential and commercial customers with metal building design, panel options, building components, and trim options. Pioneer Steel & Pipe's residential line is energy efficient, offers low maintenance, reduces insurance payments, is impact resistant, and carries up to a 45-year limited warranty. In addition, they can also help you find a metal building contractor for your project. Pioneer Steel & Pipe with locations in Waco and Bryan and at pioneersboys.com.
Baylor Scott & White, Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics. The team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, hand or wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trusts. Baylor Scott & White, Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
It's plain and simple. Waco Custom Marketplace is the one-stop shop for what you need for tailgating, from charcoal, cold beer, and wine. And, of course, customize your order with brisket, tri-tip, sausage, wings, smoked pork tenderloin, country-style or pork spare ribs, marinated beef and chicken fajita meat, ground beef and chili, meat, hot dogs, and burgers, buns, seasoning, sauces, chips. There's fresh baked bread and kolaches every day, breakfast sausage links. And you can also customize your favorite cut of steaks from Select, Choice, or Prime, bacon wrap fillets, ribeyes, New York strip, sirloin, T-bone, and porterhouse. Full service butcher shop includes pork, poultry, beef, chicken, and seafood, serving Waco restaurants and families since 1940. Your one-stop shop for beef, pork, poultry, and seafood needs. Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Erie Drive, or WacoCustomMarketplace.com.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio. It's time for our weekly segment with Grayson Grundhafer of Sikkim365.com. Brought to you by Pioneer Steel and Pipe, where customer service is their main focus, and best in metal, steel, and pipe for large or small projects, with 2 locations in Waco and Bryan. Family owned and operated since 1943.
Grayson Grundhafer, Sikkim365.com, recruiting analyst, co-host with Craig, the Bearcast, but many other things. He's got constant stories up about recruiting visitors, etc. The spring game is tomorrow. Grayson, let's start with the visitors list. I saw Lagway among some others who will be in town. Obviously, they want as many as they can get there. Your thoughts about the list overall? How would you grade it?
Yeah, it's a pretty good list. It's kind of it's an interesting one because I think a lot of people have been looking at it and trying to say, how many of the high-end prospects are they going to get on campus? But you have to remember, Baylor's gotten a lot of guys on campus throughout the spring, and so guys are kind of making these decisions to go see places that maybe they haven't seen before. So I think for the 2023 class, it's a lot of commits. It's a lot of, the guys that they've kind of been on for a while. The name that probably stands out the most to that list is Hershey running back Amarian Peterson, who's a guy that they've really, prioritized in this recruiting cycle. He's a big-time running back prospect, would fit really well with what Baylor's trying to do in the wide zone scheme. But I think the biggest kind of area to look at on this list is the 2024 class. Baylor has a lot of their high-end targets coming in for this visit, including Derek Lagway, who's one of the best quarterbacks in the entire country. They got Colton Siraki, who is Caden Siraki's brother. Caden, of course, is a 2022 signee, and then Colton is a really, really good prospect in the 2024 class. I actually think he's probably going to be a 4-star type guy. I think he'll be more highly rated than Caden was. So I really like what I'm seeing from the 2024 guys. I think it's a really talented list, and overall, I'd probably give it a B+. They don't have a lot of the top guys in the entire country as far as the 2023 class goes. But I think they have just enough to make this, a really, really, talented list, and a list that I think they can, do some work with.
Grayson, knowing that we're not going to see a lot of the guys at wide receiver that we're probably going to see in the fall when that depth chart really gets sorted out, what are you looking to see from that position in particular tomorrow and how they use certain guys?
Yeah, I'm kind of looking to see if there's a guy that stands out as an alpha. And, it's kind of hard in these spring games to really get a sense of, what guys are doing really well and who's really standing out. But I would say if you go back to last year, there were a few takeaways that I think were pretty obvious. And the main one was Abram Smith, playing a huge role in their offense during the season. So I'm wondering if there'll be a wide receiver who steps up the way that Abram did a year ago. We might see that at the running back position as well. But I think at wide receiver, I'm looking for guys like Monterey Baldwin. How's he going to be used this year? Because last year he wasn't really used much as a route runner. He was more used in the run game with the jet sweep action and the short passing game. I'm curious if maybe something changes and he expands his game. And I think that's something that we probably all have a question about is he really a guy that can go deep downfield? Can he really win in the intermediate routes? I think we need to see that more on film and see that more at Baylor. I think he has the talent to do it, but the question is he there yet? As far as the other guys, you look at Josh Cameron, a walk-on, who is very, very talented, who's really stood out so far in this spring. How does he look? Does he really look like an alpha? Does he look like a guy who's really going to potentially start on the outside, or the younger guys like a Javon Gibson or Jalen Ellis going to step up? I think Jalen Ellis and Seth Jones and Gavin Holmes, those are all 3 guys that I think everyone wants to see a lot out of in this spring game as well. So really a ton of unknowns, but I'm excited. There's a lot of really good young guys, so I'm curious, who really stands out. I didn't even mention Armani Winfield, who has kind of stolen the show at the wide receiver position as well. But yeah, it's a talented group, but there's a lot to figure out for sure. And I'm just hoping we see some flashes of potential and what could be when the fall rolls around.
Grayson, locally, it's been kind of a mixed bag for Baylor in recruiting. When you think about like the Waco, Temple, Killeen area, they definitely, you mentioned Monterey Baldwin from being down at Killeen. We just saw Darian Gillette from Marlin release his top list of final schools, I suppose, and Baylor not on there. That much of a surprise to you?
It was a little bit until I really looked at the list, and to be frank, the list is really just a bunch of blue blood schools and a bunch of schools that, have big fan bases. They're big market schools. And I'm sure, there's a possibility that NIL is involved as well, because Darian is a fantastic player, a really, really good athlete, and I think a special linebacker prospect. And his top 12 is filled with, A&M, Texas, Ohio State, Oklahoma, Alabama, LSU, Notre Dame, Oregon. I mean, a lot of the top programs in the country. So, good for him to release his top 12. It's unfortunate for Baylor because the Bears were in on him really early, and we're a school that he really liked for a long time. But I think as the process kind of dragged on, there were maybe things that probably became more important to Darian, and he made his list, and these are his top 12. And so I'm curious where he does end up, because he's a fantastic player, and I think he's an NFL guy.
How are they going to split up, you think, the quarterback reps?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. Last year Jacob Zeno was actually the guy who got the start a season ago. So I would think Gary's going to get the start this year, and then he'll probably be on the 1 team, and then I would guess Chapin will be on the 2 team, and then Kyron Drones will get reps kind of mixed in there as well. I'm hoping they do it more like last year, because if you remember last year, Kyron Drones got some reps, but Chapin got quite a few drives in. Gary got a bunch of drives in, and Jacob got a bunch of drives in. And I'm hoping the top 3 guys get some looks. I want Kyron to actually go out there and be able to get some reps this spring and show what he can do, while also, of course, allowing Gary and Chapin to kind of battle it out for, the top guy on the depth chart, even though I think at this point it's not necessarily a foregone conclusion, but I think that Gary has had a very impressive spring, and I think it's allowed him to hang on to the starting quarterback job, at least for now.
Do you think if I ask Dave Aranda what they're looking for in the portal, he'll tell us?
I doubt it. I really doubt it. I doubt he would say specifically what they're looking at. It would probably be an answer kind of like, we're always looking to improve our roster or something along those lines. And I think it's pretty apparent, and I think we can draw conclusions based on the depth they have on the roster and kind of the injuries that they've suffered. And, I think we can draw conclusions, but I don't think he'd give you necessarily a straight answer on positions they're going to look at. And honestly, I think that's probably the smart way to do it, not really answer it and just say, you're always looking to get better. And I think that's what any program is doing. So I think he would be lying if he said they're not looking for anyone in the portal. But I think, in his mind, they're trying to get better. And I think there are some positions that they're going to look at. We've talked about quite a few of them, whether it's wide receiver or upgrading on the offensive line or looking at safety and trying to get maybe more veteran experience there, or even cornerback as well. There's a lot of options and a lot of routes that they could go. And I still think they're definitely going to look to add some talent to the roster.
Grayson, you've mentioned some of the players who are like the next level or the next, wave of talent. Are there maybe 2 or 3 young men that have either redshirted or even new on campus, or a couple of others that you are more interested in seeing how much maybe they've jumped from one level to the next tomorrow?
Yeah. Oh gosh. I do recruiting, so there's a bunch of guys that I'm going to be looking at and trying to see the kind of jumps they make. So I'll kind of quickly go through a few of the guys that I'm really, really looking forward to seeing. So the first one is Armani Winfield, and he's a true freshman. But guys, he is so talented. He's really had an impressive spring. He's made an immediate impact. And so for him to come on campus so quickly and do this, that's a big deal for Baylor. And if they don't take a transfer portal guy, it's because they feel good about kind of what he's brought to the table, along with some of the other guys. That would also indicate that they feel good about how Presley's injury and that Jalen Ellis is taking a step. But I think Armani would definitely be a big reason why they would decide not to. And then I would also say kind of at wide receiver as well, Javon Gibson is a very talented player as well. It's just a matter of if he's ready or not. Is he a year away, or is this a year where he can be ready to go? So he's another one at wide receiver I'm curious about. I know we've talked a ton about Jordan Jenkins, the former Lindale running back. He's sensational, and he really looks to me like he fits this offense really well. The question is, is he better than the guys they have on the roster, and can he fill a particular role? Can he come in and take over the goal line running back job? And if so, he might find himself on the field because physically he looks like the biggest guy on the roster. He looks the closest to Abram Smith to me, and he's even bigger than Abram. And so I think he's a guy that I'm definitely going to be focused in on to see the steps he's taken in the right direction. On the defensive side, Jackie Marshall at that jack spot. I know there's a lot of depth there when you talk about Matt Jones and Garmin Randolph, but both of those guys are dealing with injuries. So I really think Jackie's going to get an opportunity tomorrow to really show what he can do, and I have a feeling he's going to be very impressive. He's a guy that man, on film, I mean, when you talk about a guy that's 240 pounds returning punts for touchdowns, I mean, you just don't see that type of athleticism every day. And then at the defensive back spot, safety in particular, Devin Lemire, the redshirt freshman out of Manor. I really like his game, and he's really impressed this spring. He's a guy who's kind of really asserted himself into that safety role. I'm not going to say he's locked up the starting job, but I do think he's made the biggest statement up to this point. Now he's got to put on display on Saturday, but I really like what I've seen from him. He was a guy I really liked coming out of high school, and he's looking to come in and possibly replace JT Woods, who had a fantastic year for the Bears a year ago. So I'm curious to see if he's taken that step and if he can really be a guy that's dependable on the back end of the defense.
Because of who they've been able to recruit, and again, coming off what they did in Matt Rule's last year, even with what happened 2-7, and then coming off of what they did last year, do you feel like those who are ready to play, those whose time it is to play, are better players than even those who we see getting maybe drafted? I'm not saying they're at that level, but do you see, is the next level of Wave more talented than it was 3 or 4 years ago?
Yeah, that's an interesting question because, I mean, I guess you kind of have to compare these guys to the draft class that they have now, which is a really, really good draft class. There's going to be a lot of guys that get drafted next week. So a lot of talent, and you don't want to kind of overestimate the talent on the roster because, as we all know, it's hard to get drafted. I mean, we've seen a lot of really good Baylor players that simply did not get drafted at all because it's difficult. And it's more than just being an impact player on the field. It's more than stats. You got to be the right kind of person and the right kind of cultural fit to make it in the NFL. And I really think the guys on these rosters, I mean, I look at it up and down. I'm like, they're talented. They're great guys. I see a lot of guys who could potentially be NFL guys. And I actually think the depth is deeper than really it has been in a long time. Depth being, I think there's guys that are young that are potentially going to be NFL guys down the road. So I think they're in a better position today than they really have been in a long time, at least NFL wise. And so I think that talent is going to show up, and you're really going to see it on the defensive line and the offensive line. They're very, very talented there. But beyond that, they have a lot of young guys who I just think are going to step into big roles and potentially be NFL guys, like an Armani Winfield specifically. But yeah, I really like this roster. I like what they've built. And I think the recruiting part of this has really allowed them to build depth and build quality NFL depth on the back end of their roster, which is really important. You need depth to sustain the long season in college football. And when you're able to have, really high quality depth behind starters who are potentially NFL guys as well, that's when you start becoming a team that can win 10 games every single year, which is what Baylor's trying to become, get more consistent, and therefore help recruiting, help continue building that depth for the future.
Grayson, thank you. See you tomorrow. Grayson Grunhafer, Sikkim365.com recruiting analyst. A mouthful, the last couple of segments on Baylor's spring game coming up tomorrow at McLean Stadium. By the way, Blake Blackmar, former Baylor offensive lineman, is just around the corner. He's going to join us in studio, bringing some of us some goodies as well, and that will be sometime in the 4 o'clock hour. When we come back, that and more, Sikkim 365 Radio and 365 Sports. IdealMRI.com in the Central Texas Marketplace in Waco, just on the southern part of town, just off of I-35 on the exit of Highway 6. Dr. Rob Maxey, the owner, partner of Ideal MRI. When I had an MRI the other day, it's been a few months ago, he called me and said, hey, I'm about to put this in like a folder or whatever, but this is what I see. He called me to tell me what he saw in the MRI, and he didn't tell me anything I didn't know about my left shoulder. He's fantastic to work with, and that's what Ideal MRI brings to the table. They will also make sure they're in touch with your doctor, whoever that is that wants and requests you to get an MRI, whether it's your shoulder, your knee, whatever it might be. Ideal MRI will do that, save you a ton of money, $497 or less every single time. I've had somebody that works in a health system tell me he sends his clients there because they can save money, $497 or less every single time, and the average is around $1,100 for an MRI. And on top of that, they're going to find out what is hurting you, or maybe find out there's nothing there and it could be something else. IdealMRI.com.
1, 2.
I'm in love with a man named Rudy. I'm okay with that. He knows exactly what I want. Keeps me coming back. Cooks breakfast, lunch, and dinner for me. Does the dishes too. I'm in love with a man named Rudy. Last name Barbecue. It sure is easy to fall in love with Rudy's tasty oak smoked barbecue.
Next in line.
From the first workout to the last practice, sports is an incredible challenge. Hi, this is Dan Ingham with the First National Bank of Central Texas, and we're proud to support each athlete, every parent, and our educators. From families, small businesses, to the biggest industry, we're here to help. With remarkable products like First Free Checking, we've got banking ideas that fuel big dreams. The First National Bank of Central Texas. Familiar faces making local decisions.
Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
Automatic Chef Canteen is a full-service micro-market vending and office coffee provider with state-of-the-art vending equipment, a wide variety of products, and offering custom-fitted micro-market vending office coffee solutions for your employee break room. You want a full break room solution and a workplace oasis? Well, Automatic Chef Canteen, locally owned and operated for over 50 years in Central Texas, also includes in-house mechanics on call 24/7 for fast, reliable service and maintenance. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchefcanteen.com.
Do you or your kids get nervous about going to the dentist? Stonewood Dental, Dr. Steve Childress, he can help.
I've spent a career taking care of patients who as children had bad experiences, and now they're adults that hate going to the dentist. If I get a kid at 3 years old and they come every 6 months and it's a happy experience, it's normal for them. Now they have an accident at 6 or 7 or 8 at school. Now they have a broken tooth or a trauma, and they have to come here. They're used to lights, they're used to water in their mouth, they're used to experience, they already trust us. It's amazing what we can do with that kid without it being a negative thing. But if I see a 6 or 7 or 8 year old that's never been to the dentist, and now they have a trauma or an unfortunate unexpected toothache, it's harder to do that for that kid and it not be somewhat of a negative experience. So bottom line is I try to teach kids and adults and teenagers and everybody the way I'd want my family treated, which is where it's a necessary part of life. You just take care of it. It doesn't have to be that big a deal.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
When we moved to Texas, we were like fish out of water. We didn't know anyone in our neighborhood until our Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent came to the house. She was so helpful and reassuring, a friendly face with that Texan hospitality I'd heard about. When we purchased a Texas Farm Bureau insurance policy, we knew we were making the right choice. We knew our family would be protected.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Baylor University is where lights shine bright. So, let there be light. Let there be roommates and teammates, scholarship and championships. Let there be fresh starts and new traditions, fast friendships and lasting impacts. Let there be laughter. Let there be joy. Let there be light. Baylor University, where lights shine bright.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio.
Flagler off the window, the tip. Oh, my goodness.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Thanks to Grayson Grudhafer. An hour from now, a little bit less than an hour from now, we do a tour of Penn State, Texas, and Notre Dame. They have their spring games coming up this week as well. Tonight, TCU. And, of course, we had Drew Davison. We'll have Sonny Dykes next week, Joey McGuire next week, as well as a couple of coaches from the Big 12. Paul Catalina, Craig Smoak is outside. I think he'll help him with construction. Blake Blackmar is going to join us, and when he gets here, we'll take a break and get set up, and Blake will tell us exactly about his Food Network. Can I use that? Is that a copyright?
Yeah, I think it, but look, the food, I see Rachel Ray all the time because a person in my house watches Rachel Ray a lot.
Your neighbor?
No, my Amanda likes Rachel Ray. And Rachel Ray does a lot where she has people cooking from home. A lot of them very talented, but I'm telling you, Blake could fit right in. And many with not nearly as much personality as Blake has.
No.
Especially with his very dry sense of humor.
Who, Blake?
Yeah, he has a very dry sense of humor. He
really does. He's kind of a little sarcasm in him as well. By the way, from Jack, the morning in line at the hot bagel shop, many of us were talking college football. One dude was saying that Texas and Oklahoma were not leaving the Big 12 because of legal action of some sort, question mark.
Oh, they just
question mark. Right?
No,
that's
no legal action
talk.
Other than them waiting to figure out how to pay out or not.
H-Bar Farkle, just saying thanks. I listen to 365 daily. Thank you, sir. We appreciate you as well. So thank you very much for being a part of our family at 365 Sports.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of college football discussion going on around Texas and Oklahoma, but as of right now, they're not going anywhere for at least the next, couple seasons. So until that changes with some announcement of some sort, people can debate it all they want, but it's the way it's going to be until that contract runs out, and their rights are no longer that of the Big 12s. And look, for everybody to say, well, just go pay $80 million and go jump into the SEC anyway. It still doesn't work that way. No. They still own their rights till 2025. So they can go play in the SEC in theory, but guess where the money's going? It's going to the Big 12. So there's not really much that they can do. Maybe some legalese out there have a better solution, but on the surface, it appears that they're just stuck where they are. And even if they pony up the big money, which, it's been debated whether OU can swing that, big check or not. But, again, their TV rights are still ownership of the Big 12 until 2025.
And there's nothing other than just the lessening of a headache of scheduling a conference one way for a couple of years and then having to flip it around. There's nothing that financially behooves either side now to do it.
Well, and
to not wait it out.
And they created the headache.
Yeah.
So, they don't have any room to complain. There's a change in the schedule because they forced the change in the schedule. So, cry, piss, and moan about having to play UCF for a year or something, but you created that issue. So I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear any complaints. That was all you're doing. And I don't think there's too many of that.
And I think it's from both sides as well, though. Like the Big 12 has no impetus to just shove them out the door if they can continue to make money off them for 3 full seasons if it gets down.
Well,
to that.
I said this, and I said it one time without really thinking, which is kind of whenever my lips are moving, but about the Big 12 and Texas and OU, you want to keep them as long as you can. Now, if you get a huge chunk of money, and that ends up paying everybody else a lot of money, and then that your conference is strong. Maybe, of course, it will not be stronger without them, but then there's an impetus for that. But you want to keep them as long as you can for a lot of different reasons, and one of them is the value of the conference that they're in because you're in it as well. Now, let's see here. Oh, Armstrong. This is not college football related. We'll get back. I got a question. Forget. We'll put that calendar thing up later. Who will Texas, OU, and the SEC, whenever that is, 25, whatever year, of those two schools, or whoever is going to be a part of, we know the 12 Big 12 schools outside of Texas and Oklahoma. which of that group, the 12 who retain, who are the new Big 12, or Texas and Oklahoma in the SEC, which has a better chance of getting in the college playoff first?
The Big 12.
Yeah.
First of all, you're talking about 12 teams compared to 2, and you're talking about what appears to be the competitive nature of the Big 12 compared to trying to beat up the teams that you have to beat to get to the Big 12 or to win the SEC or get to the playoff.
It's not even the 12 teams versus the 2 because Kansas isn't sniffing a playoff anytime soon, and there's some others that I feel pretty confident you can say, like, yeah, they're not going to the playoff anytime. Like, I don't think West Virginia's going to the playoff anytime soon. I think TCU's not going to the playoff anytime soon. Like, maybe they'll show us something this year that you think differently, but as of right now, I wouldn't expect that anytime soon. I mean, the candidates would be Oklahoma State, they'd be Baylor, and they'd be,
Cincinnati. We were just in it.
Yeah, Cincinnati. I mean, yeah, and now I'm having to think about those schools as well. But, I definitely go with the Big 12 schools versus, having to play Alabama and Auburn and LSU and A&M and all these schools. I mean, you could have a great year, still lose 3 games. And that's going to be, I think, the big difference for Oklahoma and Texas is, those great teams that you had, you could kind of run through the Big 12, but, those great teams aren't necessarily going to run through that week after week SEC schedule. So, yeah, I'd definitely go the Big 12 on that bet.
That was something that was brought up, by the way, in the 365 chat room as well. From Matthew Braz, Texas or Oklahoma, I think, has a better chance. From Jacob, well, do we know which team going to be what part of the West or the East? Are there pods? That may have something to do with it as well for Oklahoma and Texas once they do enter the SEC. We don't have any idea.
But I also think that Oklahoma and Texas are going to have to – there's going to be a couple season buffer zone of adjusting to the style of play and who they're seeing and, there's going to be and look, that might be an advantage to some extent for them to win some games because these teams haven't seen each other. They don't know all that stuff. But I think there's going to be a longer period of adjustment for Texas and Oklahoma, which leads me to agree with Craig in that, the Big 12 teams can pretty much, especially the good ones, can kind of keep doing what they're doing without having to go to Norman or Austin.
They don't play them anymore.
Yeah, they don't play them anymore. So, they don't have to go to Norman or Austin anymore. Keep rolling on. Look, I'll just use Baylor as an example. Baylor against Texas A&M, and I'm not trying to pump up Texas A&M here, but it's no coincidence that Baylor's win total went up when a team that didn't beat but twice in 30 years left the league.
But
when Nebraska left too.
If they would have played them in the last 10 or 12 years.
Yeah. But I'm talking about in that immediate, that little pocket of time where they got better right after A&M left, it certainly helped because they didn't have to go to a place that was a bugaboo for them. Nebraska was gone, who used to come in here and beat them all the time. Yeah. So there's 2 teams gone that used to beat you all the time.
I agree. That's absolutely agree. But in the last 10 or 12 years, most years they've been better than both of those teams.
Yeah, I'm not trying to talk about that. I'm just talking about
they would have still not won some games.
The immediate balloon popping of, okay, these are 2 places that it's just a wasteland.
Yes.
And everybody has them no matter who you are. Texas is Kansas. Look, Texas might get another win every year in the SEC because they don't have to go to the state of Kansas anymore. I don't know. I mean, they've struggled lately.
TCU didn't have much of a buffer, did they? When did TCU have their big 2014?
After they've been in the league and not been very good for a couple of years. They weren't very good. And then all of a sudden they got Trayvon Boykin and the big offense to pair with the defense and the whole Baylor TCU thing. They didn't just swoop in and start playing at a Big 12 championship level.
But they also had just lost a team that went unbeaten and won the Rose Bowl, and they had some transition.
Well, I mean, we can do that for every team. And but bottom line is, if we were really dissected by Colorado and blah, 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 basically, 2 great teams are leaving. So that automatically makes it easier. Now, other teams could rise, of course, but there's a billion caveats we can use for this example. But bottom line is, do you think Texas and Oklahoma are going to get to a national championship before any team in the Big 12? No, I don't. I think the Big 12 has an easier path in their new standing without Texas and Oklahoma to have a team go unbeaten and get there versus Texas and Oklahoma, who don't have to go unbeaten. They can lose probably, at least a game, maybe 2.
Yep.
But even then, that's stretching it. And right now, the way they're constructed, they're not going through the Big 12 unscathed. So why am I going to believe that they're going to go through the SEC without dropping more than a game or 2 in the very immediate start of it? That's just where I am.
One thing might also be the timing of when the college football expansion, if it ever does take place.
Yeah, that changes.
Then that changes everything. Then both would have a very, very good time. Matthew Bras, Big 12 will have to make a concerted effort schedule non-conference games of strength. Well, Matthew, that's been going on, and that is something that's not new. Everyone's starting to do that, including Baylor, which, of course, took a lot of hell because of their non-conference schedule. They have increased that tenfold without question of who they're playing. But he's
right, though. They're going to have to play better games than non-conference because there's not a Texas and Oklahoma anymore, and those guys matter on your schedule. So he's right. And yes, the Big 12 has scheduled non-conference games just like everybody else in the country does. But, yeah, they might have to be a little bit more precise about having a name on that non-conference schedule that they might not normally have, just in the case that, the Big 12 is not some great conference. You need to bolster that resume as much as possible. So, yeah, it might be smart to have a Penn State in week 3 or something like that.
When we come back, he has entered the studio. The seas have parted. He's got a cooler with him, a big one. Blake Blackmar, former Baylor offensive lineman and culinary expert, is next on Sikkim 365 Radio and 365 Sports. Alan Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat, Loop 340 east of 84 in Waco. The 2022 Ram 1500 Lone Star Quad Cab. Total values of up to $6,500 or get $3,000 bonus cash, 2.9% for 72 months. Also, first responders an extra $500 of cash. Also, the 2022 Wagoneer Series 2 and 3, 2.9% for 72 months and $3,000 bonus cash. That's both. And also, first responders, again, extra savings of $500 as well. If you want the best Ram truck, back-to-back Motor Trend Truck of the Year, if you want great savings and also bonus opportunities and discounts and great APR financing, it's Alan Samuels, Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat. AJ, by the way, is back there and has been for a few weeks, one of the great salespeople in the car business. And, of course, Ted Teague, who runs the mothership at Loop 340 east of 84 in Waco.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
Did you know that Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness is a partner of the city of Waco? Did you know that we are open to the public? Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness offers day passes to the public for only $10 a day, and we offer money-saving memberships. Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness offers over 40 group exercise classes each week, including bar, yoga, boot camp, indoor cycling, and more. There are free weights, weight machines, TRX, rowing machines, stationary bikes, new treadmills, elliptical machines, and much more on the spacious weight room floor. Personal training available where you can be encouraged to grow. Sauna, whirlpool, tanning bed and kids club, 17 tennis courts, 8 pickleball courts, youth and adult tennis and pickleball lessons. Waco's premier experience where you can help your mind, body, and soul. Visit our website at wacotennis.com. Call us at 254-753-7675 or visit us next to Hawaiian Falls on Lakeshore Drive in Waco.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive and North 19th Street, right behind the bank, is a hidden gem in Waco. If you're a fan of bourbon, especially local Texas bourbons, that's where you gotta go. Balcones, TX, Devil's River, whatever it is, they've got it. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, plus the best selection of craft beers in Waco, seasonally churned out throughout the year. Whether it's spring, summer, fall, or winter, Riverbend Liquor and Wine, best selection of craft beers, a speedy drive-through window, and excellent customer service. Find out more on Instagram or just go by and see them. Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street behind the bank.
How did Edward Jones become one of the biggest financial service companies in the world? By not acting that way. Financial strategies, one-on-one advice, it's a big difference. And that's why Brad Wilson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, makes sense of investing. Experience the difference for yourself. Brad Wilson, 250 Sharon Drive in Woodway, 254-776-4337. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Brad Boozer, Boozer's Jeweler, joins us on Sikkim 365 Radio. Boozer's Jewelers on the corner of Valley Mills and Lake Air Drive. It's a staple of the Waco economy. And you're about to approach this time of the year where you have the holidays, special gifts. It's not that you don't have that every single day. What are some of the things you have coming up?
You know, we kind of call ourselves the wedding ring store. We do all of our own custom work in-house. I've got 2 expert jewelers on staff every day. We can make anything from scratch. We kind of pride ourselves, probably 9 out of 10 every engagement ring we do is actually made custom to what the customer wants.
People look at that, oh my God, I can't afford it. I can't afford something like that. You've shown me examples that you could fit pretty much any budget.
It doesn't cost any more to custom make something. You still have gold, you still have diamonds, and you still have labor. Best thing about a custom piece is if you have any old jewelry or heirloom jewelry or something passed down from a grandma or somebody, we can take that jewelry and use it towards your wedding ring for the sentimental value, and then you've got the product, and then it's just a little bit of labor and a little bit of design on your part of what you actually want.
You want to know why they're successful? Brad Boozer, the owner of Boozer's Jewelers on the corner of Valley Mills and Lake Air in Waco.
This is Sikkim 365 Radio. Text us at 254-339-1122. The Sikkim 365 Radio text line is sponsored by Riverbend Liquor and Wine, with the most extensive variety of craft beer in Waco. A hidden gem on Lakeshore Drive and 19th Street.
Blake Blackmar, Baylor lineman, culinary expert, has turned his life into something that would be proudly presented on the Food Network, but he has his own food podcast. Joins us in studio today, and we've got Blake in. He just arrived with the big cooler and some barbecue, which is what he is good at. In fact, he's here in studio. We'll talk football, of course, as well, Baylor football, as they have their spring game tomorrow. So what do we got?
So today we've got a brisket, put it on yesterday at about lunch, cooked it all, took it off about midnight, and we're ready to roll.
You put it on at once, and you took it off at midnight, and let it sit overnight?
Yeah, okay. Let it do a long rest rest of the night, all day, and it should be prime time, ready to go.
So when this has obviously been a few year process for you, like learning how to cook brisket.
Sure.
Like, what schools of thought have you who have you learned from, and which methods do you like the most?
Right. So I think when I first started getting into barbecue, I was seeing a bunch of stuff. A lot of stuff that's on Instagram and YouTube is all Kansas City style because it's pretty food. Mm-hmm. I went to Lou Miller's and Taylor, and I ate the beef rib there. Changed my life. I became completely obsessed. I got really into super dark bark, lots of pepper, Central Texas, clean smoke, offset cookers. So I've kind of gone down that path. I follow, Aaron Franklin's got a book. There's pictures of me reading his book during my senior training camp two-a-days because I already knew the playbook back and forward, right? And so pulling information from them, all these other sources. There's a guy on YouTube called Chud's Barbecue that is, he's a former pitmaster at several top 50 joints, and he kind of tells all secrets. So I've been kind of following that path, and I think I've got it honed pretty good.
So this has become quite the passion for you, hasn't it? I mean, this is not just play, but also kind of work almost in a way now too, right?
It's starting to get there. It was something I used to do to get people and fellowship and take our mind off football and everything. My favorite way to drink a beer is in front of the smoker, but it's enough people like it, and it's really replaced football with my passion of chasing perfection or trying to get better every day. So I'm always watching YouTube videos or reading something. It's replaced watching film for me. I'm always thinking about it, just like I used to think about my technique and stuff like that. So it's really been a lot of fun, and people ask me to do things like I just catered a church for 170 people for Easter.
Wow.
And I would like a much bigger pit to do it, but I just said, hey, we'll get it done. So we started on Thursday and got everything ready, and it was great little event. So I kind of have that mentality of football. I'm like, well, I'll do more, or I'll do more than any other just old fat guy cooking brisket,
had to mean a lot to you, man, to have people now reaching out like, hey, can you come do the for the church,
Yeah, it's a ton of fun. And then I've also starting to get some just Baylor fans who are semi-local, like, hey, do you want to cook a brisket sometime, or you want to hang out? And I live for that, anytime you want to just put your feet up and tell war stories and drink a cold one, I'm there, man.
So the game is tomorrow. You obviously cooked something, as you mentioned, for today, which we appreciate.
Sure.
But we'll talk football, but we wanted to promote what you're doing because it has become, every time I see something from you on social media, I have to watch it, look at it, wonder if I could cook it in any particular way. How much feedback, you're talking about you've been able to do some events, but how much, has this blown you away, the feedback you've gotten?
A little bit, yeah. I mean, the crazy thing, because when I was playing, I was never big on social media, right? Because I was all against, no bulletin board material and all that stuff. And now that I've got nothing to, I can just put whatever out there, no hard feelings, right? So I just put my food out there, what I ate for lunch. I work from home, so almost every day I can make something fresh for lunch. It's my favorite part of the day. And so the amount of people I've been able to connect with, like via Twitter, there's a guy, he and his daughter made the reaction videos during the basketball and football games because we live in Hawaii.
Kakamoto's?
Yeah. So I actually met that guy in Georgetown outside of like a Best Buy, and he gave me a bunch of like Japanese and Hawaiian spices, togarashi powder and stuff like that, just because he thinks it's cool what I'm doing and wants to see what I can do with it.
Awesome.
And so all that kind of, and there's been plenty of times where I put stuff out on social media and people either ask, what is that? Or they're supportive, or they even make suggestions of, hey, you should try this. And I live for that stuff.
You know what I really like? You did, and the first one that comes to my mind is you did a pulled pork boudin. It was right after you had showed how to do pulled pork. And it's because it's just you and probably another person. You're a big guy, Blake, but even, all that pulled pork is a bit much,
Yeah, that's one of the, I'm starting to do this YouTube thing, and that's one of the things, kind of the theme of the channel I want to, once I get a little more time to devote to it, especially with the editing and everything, but I basically want to cook something like this is game day, right? The brisket, the pulled pork, your big classic barbecue cuts, and then what I'm calling like the bye week is of what you do with the leftovers. So taking that pulled pork and turning it into boudin. Leftover brisket can be boudin. It could be tacos. It could be, all kinds of things. And so being able to take, because almost anything can be turned into a taco, and it should be. That's a hill I'll die on. But there's all kinds of other creative things you can do. Like I've taken brisket and turned it into ramen, and that's something you even see on the menu at some ramen restaurants. And so it's pretty cool, the range you can get with it.
You made, and I have pictures, and I don't think Armstrong probably has them available, but I want to get into the gyoza because you and I discussed that a little bit earlier. I was going to make some tonight and try to bring them to you tomorrow.
I actually meant to, I made about 10 last night as a test batch because I had more stuff, and I was going to bring some for you frozen, but I didn't actually do the pinch and fold on those. I just made the stuff, and they were made out of wild boar and everything that I'd harvested, and they turned out amazing, but me trying to do it last night, they weren't going to survive the vacuum sealer.
No, I can imagine that. That's a tedious thing to do. I love them. Craig loves them as well. You made a bacon-wrapped sausage, whatever the hell this was, and you just had whatever was in the kitchen, whatever was in the refrigerator. Is that right? Eggs?
Probably. Is it? Oh, so that's the one that's got eggs in it? Yeah. So that was basically, I think we had some buddies come, my wife and I had like a couple friend come over, and we did brunch, and I wasn't really prepared for it, but I always have, essentials on hand. So we just kind of took a bunch of leftover veggies, made a really like soft scrambled eggs. You want them to be almost undercooked because they're going to get cooked, they're going to finish cooking inside their meat blanket. And so, sausage, seasoned throughout, wrapped in bacon, barbecue sauce, cut the barbecue sauce with a little syrup to make it brunchy, I guess. And it was pretty damn good.
I learned, like, watching you. I did this. This happened to me a lot. Having watching a Gordon Ramsay video, I've been scrambling eggs all wrong forever.
Oh, yeah.
Well, watch it like on the heat, off the heat. I'm like, oh my god, you got to take it off the heat. I just leave it there. And
dude, I live for that.
Yeah.
Once I learned how to do that, because especially like eating, I don't really like breakfast that much. That's why I had to do stuff like that. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'll get excited about that. But in general, I just won't eat it so I can eat whatever I want for lunch. But you start talking about, I think that's from eating so much dining hall food.
Yeah.
For 5 years at Baylor.
Being forced to eat breakfast, right?
Right. Oh yeah. They told me when Rule came in, he was like, "You're kind of a fat ass. I need you to lose weight." And so they started tracking my caloric intake, and I wasn't eating too much. I was probably only consuming like 2,800, 3,000 calories in spring ball and off-season stuff. That's not that bad for a big guy. But I was getting like 2,500 of those calories at dinner.
Yeah.
Because I was like eating, something light for breakfast, then I'd eat something pretty light for lunch because we got to go straight into practice, and I eat whatever I wanted at dinner. So they had to flip it. I had to eat, but I didn't like breakfast food that much, and I was going to be pissed if you took dinner away. So I had to eat dinner for breakfast. So that was actually kind of a highlight. I was getting pasta and all kinds of stuff for dinner. And Chef Tracy, she was the chef at the Athletic Dining Hall at the time. She would let me go back and start cooking and help make my own dinner for breakfast sometimes. So that was pretty cool.
It's amazing. Again, the follow on Twitter, you have to do that. It's simple. Blackmar Blake, BLACKMAR, and then Blake as well. And it's part of the Baylor Meat Mafia, which is something that's growing as well.
Tell us about that T-shirt.
Yeah, so this is one of the crazy, things with Twitter, right? I think I had come down probably like three weeks ago, a month ago, because Baylor and Coach Aranda, they've been great about reaching out to old players and being very welcoming, inviting us to come back, come sit in meetings, come hang out, right? So I got some buddies together. We came down and watched the Baylor scrimmage, and one of the guys had to leave. So we're walking back over, and we see the old Crowler, right? That's what this is. This was the one piece of equipment we used every single day. Didn't matter who the O-line coach was. You do solo, you do double teams on it. I probably got thousands of hits on this thing. And at one point, we actually lifted it up and threw it over the fence and slid it down towards the Brazzes. We had to go get it back, but it was a fun little joke.
Yeah.
But so Pat Lawrence and I, we had to do a couple reps on it just for old time's sakes. I think I broke my sunglasses. But so we put that on Twitter, and one of my other buddies said, I put out something like, I was powered by brisket that day or something, and someone basically said, put that on a shirt. Brian Etheridge did put it on a shirt, and I said, it's just crazy. A week later, there was a shirt with something I said, talking about the Crowler, talking about brisket, barbecue, Baylor offensive line stuff. It's awesome.
Brian Etheridge, when it comes to marketing, when it comes to pictures or NIL stuff, or that right there is, he's got the McPlay.
And brisket.
Oh, yeah.
That's a good.
Yeah, and he's one of those who will bow up to you a little bit on that, too, as far as the cooking. Our friend Corby Simpkins, the mailman, he contacts you all the time. He's been a part of competitions as well. All right, so you're going to cut into that.
His deal's ribs.
Yeah.
Like that's his wheelhouse.
Yeah, we you connected me with Corby, and we really got on. And now that I'm associated with Favorites Barbecue, right? That's my rub sponsor, and I have a affiliate link now or whatever. So and I really like the product, but we got him on board, and he's like our competition team now.
Yeah, he's been all over the world, all over the country doing that stuff, and he takes it serious as well. Like it's just a great story. And okay, now as you're doing that, if you want to, and be careful. Sure. I know you got that sharp knife in your hand. I
think he knows what he's doing. I think we've established that.
You mentioned how Dave Aranda and the staff have opened up, and others have done that before as well. But as far as what you have seen and the progress of what they did under Eric Mateos in the offense with the wide zone. Your thoughts about the improvement and how were you stunned in a way?
I would say very pleasantly surprised, because I didn't know a whole bunch about it, and then we started watching, and you just see the way they're winning games, right? It's not always pretty. It's not just blowing people out of the water, but it's just being tougher than guys. It's moving the ball, being able to run the ball, being able to be very reliable, have the offensive line be the strongest unit, most consistent unit on the field. And that's something that, we always were striving and chasing for when I was at Baylor. So it really made me happy to see, and it made me jealous. I wish I could be a part of it.
By the way, this is not Lincoln Riley's barbecue brisket.
No.
Those look like they could be, that could be prime rib.
Looks like you could fill up a water bottle with the juices coming off of there.
God, that looks perfect. That looks really, really good.
Yeah, I've been cooking a lot of select briskets recently because of the price of meat and everything. And that's been something I've really have gotten into, because it's like you don't necessarily, obviously it's nice when you can cook the highest quality stuff available, right? Mm-hmm. But, this is the little overcooked piece.
No, those are I kind
ends.
of like the edges like that. From Stephen Snook, by the way, on the chat room, he's mentioned throwing down a cold one. This Ohio guy may have to make a road trip to Waco for barbecue and a beer.
You're welcome. We'll put you up.
You mentioned something about the best way to drink a beer is around a barbecue pit or whatever. I thought the best way to drink a beer was opening it up. Just open it up, just pop the can, right?
My brother-in-law gave me a little, pop top thing that I need to get screwed onto the back of my pit just so I'm always ready,
Yeah. Clink.
How much have you added to your repertoire or what you have to cook with? Has that been something that you're slowly upgrading, or you just kind of love? Because we've seen the pit. It was in the parking lot here.
Oh, yeah.
Back when we first opened up this show.
So essentially, and this was kind of during my last year at Baylor, right? Last season playing. I was in a pretty easy class, and but it was one of those classes where you have a computer, and so I basically would spend every day trolling online looking for a pit, because I wanted a big offset. I had small ones in college that people either bequeathed to me, some 20-year-old Oklahoma Joe or something like that, but I wanted something big, and I wanted it on a trailer because I wanted it to be mobile, right? I wanted to do tailgating and stuff when I knew I was going to be done playing. And so I ended up finding this custom pit builder that I really liked, but I wasn't done playing. I had a pretty serious girlfriend, all this stuff. I was still in college, so I just kind of filed it away, right? I went, did all my stuff. We played in the the Texas Bowl? Yeah. It was sponsored by Academy, and they gave us Academy gift cards for $150 or something, right? That was a bowl gift. And there were several guys from the Northeast on the team that didn't know what Academy was, right? So I was going, and it was like me and Kyle Boyd, he was a Marine, then played at Baylor, but he and I were in a war trying to get these guys gift cards, giving them $100 cash for it to get $150 to Academy. He was buying guns and ammo. I bought an egg smoker, right?
Yeah.
So I have a collection of pits now. I pretty much have everything needed for an outdoor kitchen at the house. It's just getting someone to come frame it out that is the next step. And I'm pretty much ready to pull the trigger, but I'm also, because the feedback from Baylor and everything, or from Baylor fans and everything, and the barbecue's kind of taken off, I'm also do I want to take some of that money and just put it towards building a new pit that's bigger, has more capacity. So I am actually working with a buddy of mine out in California to build 2 backyard smokers that we're gonna, because they have propane tanks out there. He found these 250-gallon propane tanks for $75. And so I'm like, hey, he knows a welder. I'm like, hey, I'll design it. We'll work together on getting it built with this welder and everything, and then we'll work on selling them or whatever and see if it's feasible. But it's a fun little side project. So I haven't quite gone all in on the outdoor kitchen. I really want it, but I don't know if I want it more than a new smoker. My wife, on the other hand, is like, just do the outdoor kitchen.
Well, that means you're going to do the outdoor kitchen,
right?
Congrats on the outdoor kitchen, boy.
What do you like when you go into a kitchen store?
So one of my favorite I got most of the equipment I have at the restaurant supply store. I actually going in because I think we got married, right? And we went and registered at like Williams-Sonoma. And there are a couple of great little finds we got there, but I mostly walk through there and I kind of get hacked off a little bit because there's all this stuff that looks pretty but doesn't have isn't the most functional stuff in the world, and it's kind of expensive, whereas go to the restaurant supply store and it's all about function and being able to do large quantities. So I'm like a kid in the candy shop, you know.
How much has this unintentionally built a kind of a camaraderie for former Baylor football guys and just Baylor fans, and kind of, you know, Baylor's been building as a school and as a program, but kind of having this whole game day scene and, you know, having former players involved like yourself. Like, how much do you kind of see that rising a little bit right now?
That's part of that is the main reason we're doing this spring game barbecue cookout. We're trying to make it a yearly family reunion, right?
Mm-hmm.
An excuse to get old lettermen to come back, compete and barbecue, fans to compete and barbecue. And even if you can't, you know, necessarily cook, or you can't donate the time to do that, just come and eat, drink, and enjoy, hang around, build the atmosphere. And we really want to help create a better, stronger tradition of tailgating and excitement for home games at Baylor, you know, because and I know it's difficult with all the COVID stuff, but you go to some of these other big state schools who's, frankly, we're spanking, you know, like UT, A&M, but the spring game is like a game day for them, right?
Yeah.
So the idea is to try to build that back, get people coming to all the games, get people excited, because there's plenty of veteran players, or I guess we're now lettermen now, but there's plenty of lettermen, right, who I think would love the opportunity to come back, get involved, be experienced, because that's the thing you miss most is the people, the camaraderie that you built while you were here. So to go experience that with different generations of guys, it's something special, and it's all thanks to this social media, Baylor Meat Mafia stuff that's kind of gotten a little traction.
Yeah, it's gotten a lot of attraction. And again, I love the fact you're getting that kind of publicity, and glad you could make it in. And again, Blake Blackmar, former Baylor letterman, with us. Now, what year was it that you had the least amount of scholarship offensive linemen on your roster?
Sorry, I had to take a bite.
No, that's fine. I think all of us would.
So I think it was the year that is the year between. Yeah, so it was the last spring. I guess it was at 16. We had a big recruiting class of linemen come in, and we had just lost like the whole starting offensive line in Drango, Pat Colbert, Blake Muir. Kyle was back, but he was taking limited reps because, you know, the guy played 100 snaps a game for the last 2 years.
Fuller.
Yeah, Kyle Fuller. And so the one offensive line and the two offensive line and the three offensive line had it was basically a three-man rotation at guard and a three-man rotation at tackle. And I think there were two centers. And so it was just that was probably my least. I kind of hate spring ball as a player, honestly, because you just finished playing a bunch in the season, then you just line up, tee off, and just hit each other, and it's all this, you know, it's great for the young guys to get a bunch of reps. I mean, I recognize that it's very necessary and it's awesome. But as a player, I was like, come on.
Well, it's got to feel like getting your teeth cleaned as a player.
Yeah. Right.
Like, you got to. But
because and to get so many reps, right, in a row, because you go against the ones and one defense, and you're like, okay, that was a good series. Then you go against the twos, and then they cycle back in the ones, and you're still out there. And then it's just kind of, by the film, I was kind of glad we didn't always get through all the film of spring ball because there's so many reps. And the end would usually get kind of dirty because everyone's tired. Well, we're tired. The defensive line's less tired. So the end got kind of muddy there.
Well, the first year, in fact, when Matt Rule took over, remember there were 6 scholarship offensive linemen. And now you have all these guys who came back. Xavier Newman, obviously, is headed towards, we hope, the NFL in some particular way. But you have a bunch back. And then the next level that he redshirted or didn't play a lot.
Right. That was the thing that really surprised and impressed me for the scrimmage I went to, because I believe it was their first scrimmage of the spring ball. And I mean, it looked like a week 1, week 2 of fall camp. You know, the scrimmage you might have before you go play the game, right? Still very base, a lot of young guys playing, but it seemed very polished, right? You have a ton of veteran offensive linemen. You've got a nasty two-headed combo at nose tackle for them to deal with. So it's really impressive to watch the ones go and then watch the second team, which is like all young guys, and they're still going against that crazy 1-2 punch at nose tackle and doing well. They're young guys. Sometimes someone might get ragdolled, but you're still moving the ball. You've got a stud at quarterback, no matter who's back there, right? So it was just very impressive. The defense and offense both look polished.
Have you been able to talk to Eric Mateos a little bit? Get to know him at all?
A little bit, not nothing in depth. Hopefully, we'll get to slap hands and shoot the shit a little bit here this weekend or in the future. But mostly, I've been talking to Connor, and I've talked with Vic a little bit, the strength coach, because he was actually at Florida State when they recruited me in high school, and I remember going on a visit there and getting the spiel and his weight room spiel there. So then I think last year I cooked. Baylor brought me out and I cooked steaks for like the whole team in the summer, right before they went to fall camp. And so it was this kind of like they were doing this thing where every Friday they had to learn something, right? So one week was like how to tie a tie. It was useful stuff.
Yeah.
And I think I was the last one, and it was supposed to be like how to grill a steak, and it really just turned into me. It was Brandon Bass, and Connor Galvin, because they both, we all three had bonded when I was still playing, so they were both really young then, but they were both really into steaks and cooking and getting into cooking, and so they kind of helped me. But we cooked something like 80 tomahawks and then another couple of ribeyes, and it was just sit there, shoot the breeze with the coaches and players, and it was kind of weird. Some guys obviously don't know who you are, and they're saying, "Oh, yes, sir, thank you." And some guys remember all the 2-a-days and practice and cold tub stuff, just all kinds. It's crazy the things that some of these guys that were freshmen when I was there, some of the random things they remember that I'm like, did I do that?
Yeah, I bet you did, though. Hey, you enjoy. Thank you for, first of all, coming up a little bit earlier than you thought. I know you're going to be cooking overnight, right?
Yep.
And so thanks for your time, man. It's always great to see you. We're going to put this up. We'll put this up on the podcast and make sure we give you some more publicity as well.
Yeah, man. Keep up the good work. Cool to see this all taking off and what this new tradition starting up as well.
Right.
So, yeah, very, very well done, man.
There are people who live in West Virginia. I'll be there in 19 hours and 26 minutes or whatever. But you did a great job. Thanks for your time, Blake. Great to see you.
Thank you guys for supporting and helping me and, all that stuff. I love hanging out.
When we come back, we're going to check in with Penn State, then we'll check in with UT, and then also Notre Dame as we have the spring football tour. This is Sikkim 365 Radio and 365 Sports.
Richard Carr, Buick GMC Cadillac, they have a lot of great deals going on right now at Richard Carr, and of course, they are the people that you can count on as they have been for over 20 years in Central Texas at this point. New cars and trucks are arriving weekly at Richard Carr. You can go by or go online to richardcarr.com to see the current inventory, or if you stop by in person, you will see the GMC, Buick, and Cadillac models that are already on the dealership floor or are going to be en route. So as far as those vehicles that are en route, those vehicles that will be arriving soon, you want to get in those as quickly as possible. That means to get your name on the inbound vehicle list, get your name on the list before anyone else, and it'll put you in line to pick up a new car or truck as soon as they arrive. If you need a car today, you're not looking to buy new, you want to save, consider there are dozens of quality pre-owned cars and trucks. All of them go through a 172-point inspection, so you can drive them with peace of mind, and they will pay top dollar on your trade. With dozens of lending options, they say yes when others say no. For qualified buyers, you can buy a truck now, get 0% financing for 72 months on most GMC vehicles and Buick SUVs. And whether it's sales, their award-winning collision center and service center, whatever it may be that you're looking for, Richard Carr is the dealer you can count on for a great deal and superior service for the life of your car. So get your name on that inbound vehicle list if you're looking to get into a vehicle as fast as possible, especially if you're looking to buy new. But if you're looking to buy used, give them a call or go by the dealership, and they will show you what all they have to offer. Trust the good local people you can count on for 23 years in Central Texas. Proud Wacoans, proud Baylor Bears. Log on to richardcarr.com today. Call now or go see them now off Highway 6 at the Imperial exit.
Hey, this is Bryce Petty, former starting quarterback and two-time Big 12 champion, and I know firsthand the importance of being in top shape both on and off the field. So listen up, men. If you're feeling beat down day in and day out and looking for that high-performance edge that separates the men from the boys, then look no further than the Petty Clinic Low T in Waco. Petty Clinic is a comprehensive men's healthcare clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Board-certified Dr. Kent Petty has a special interest in offering the highest quality medical care to men of all ages. Some of the services offered include screening and treatment for low testosterone or thyroid, infertility, high blood pressure, diabetes, high cholesterol, sleep apnea, while offering comprehensive wellness exams and complete men's health lab panels. High performance men, remember, it's not just a Petty thing. This is Bryce Petty, encouraging you to reach out and Google search Petty Clinic Low T or go to pettycliniclowt.com and get your complimentary lab screening today.
Let Camille Johnson Realtors guide you seamlessly through the process of buying your dream home or selling your current one. Commercial, farm and ranch, or residential, Camille Johnson Realtors can smoothly and successfully lead you through any transaction. With a team of 28 experienced agents who are excited about serving you, Camille Johnson Realtors services the entire greater Waco area. If you're in the market to buy or sell, contact Camille Johnson Realtors, 104 Midway Center in Woodway, or find them online at www.camillejohnson.com. Camille Johnson Realtors, elegant, charming, warm. Welcome home.
Three Nations Brewing Company has 16 different beers on draft with a new beer every Friday. It also offers 2 air-conditioned tap rooms, a large indoor beer hall, a second-floor mezzanine offering a great overview of the brewing company and equipment and patio where you can relax under the shade. Plus, you can now experience the new Three Nations Beer Garden Grill on our shaded patio with socially distanced seating for your enjoyment. Grab a cold beer and enjoy a bite from our freshly prepared and delicious menu. Street tacos, quesadillas, freshly cooked burgers and dogs and veggie burgers too. State Fair tornado fries, nachos, and so much more, all prepared and cooked on site. So come visit the award-winning Three Nations Brewing Company on East Vandergrift off I-35 in Carrollton.
Shorty's Pizza Shack at 12th and Bagby is a homegrown, family-owned and operated must-visit pizza place in Waco. Fantastic pizza by the slice or get the whole pie to share. Great happy hour specials every single day, and it's not just pizza. Great wings. You have to try the Sikkim sauce, chili cheese fries, pizza pillows, and more. Dine in for a great hangout or carry-out. Order online at shortyspizzashack.com or do yourself a favor and bring your crew to the restaurant at 12th and Bagby. Shorty's Pizza Shack. Tell them Paul sent you by.
Stepping into a new pair of boots is great, but stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can also add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. There are more than 150 occupational specialties to help them find the best fit for their future. See all the things your son or daughter can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio. Are you a Sikkim 365 super fan? Then try out our premium subscriptions at Sikkim365.com.
Mike Porman, StateCollege.com, covers Penn State. Joins us Sikkim 365 Radio and 365 Sports as we're about to tour Blue Bloods, Penn State, Texas, and Notre Dame. Mike, thank you very much for your time. We appreciate it, with Paul, Craig, and David Smoak as well. So what did Penn State need to at least find out by the time they wrap up this weekend in a couple of special places as far as the most important priorities?
There's a couple, but I'm interested that you guys put Penn State with your Blue Bloods. That's pretty interesting. They were 11-11 the last 2 years.
Well, it's more of an all-time status thing.
Yeah, that's a tradition thing for us.
Texas is in that
wouldn't
too,
be in that conversation
no.
either right now, unfortunately. And of course, Notre Dame has been playing a lot better.
I got you. Well, speaking of Texas, to answer your question, can Mike Yurcich, who spent that entire year at Texas, didn't he make the Penn State offense go? Penn State has not had a 1,000-yard rusher in its last 3 seasons. Sean Clifford's in his 19th year at Penn State. Penn State has the Gatorade Player of the Year in Nick Singleton and a 5-star quarterback in Drew Howler. So it's those 4 guys. Can they make the offense go is really the big question for next year.
Is that the real Achilles heel? Because the defense, for better or for worse, has still been pretty consistent under James Franklin in those 3 years.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And Brent Pry, who went to Virginia Tech, did an excellent job, and now Manny Diaz, who didn't last in Miami, is running the defense. So defense is not the problem at Penn State. Penn State's offense has been offensive lately.
So what are they looking at as far as that running back room goes? What's kind of the projection for what they have in the cupboard and what they expect to lean on next season?
Well, Nick Singleton's it. I mean, they need a guy that can be the workhorse, that can carry 16 to 20 carries a game. He's a freshman. Any of you guys old enough to remember Don Nottingham?
Oh, yeah, the fullback played with the Colts. Yeah.
Oh, I'm impressed. His thighs are bigger than Don Nottingham. He is huge, figuratively and literally. If they can get 1,000 yards out of him, they'll be okay. But traditionally, Penn State needs that 1,000-yard rusher. They haven't had it. Singleton's the guy.
So James Franklin came with a lot of hype, of course, Vanderbilt, and his name has come up elsewhere as well. And I know that the COVID year was not good, and it's been a little bit down for their standards, as you mentioned as well, Mike, at 11-11. Where is everything with him? Does he need to have something special happen this year? And I say special, a team that competes for the Big Ten Eastern Division and maybe win it?
No. He signed a deal for 10 years, $85 million guaranteed, if you're going to count his year-end retention bonus. So if Penn State wants to get rid of him at the end of this season, they got to pay him over $60 million. So if they don't win a game, it's quite a parting gift. So, no. However, financially, he's set. But I have to tell you that the Penn State fan base is they're up in arms. Franklin has lately overpromised and certainly underdelivered.
Do they get mad because there was, whether it was him or not, his name comes up all the time in coaching searches?
Great question. It does. And he does not, and he will now. He has his contract, but he never really said, hey, I'm staying. I love it here. It's really, I asked him right after the USC job was open. I said, hey, why don't you just come out and say it, that you're staying, you love it here. He goes, I've said it. And I'm like, well, actually, you haven't said it. So I think emotionally, the fans are not as bought in despite that long contract.
Mike, Jahan Dotson was sensational last year, a great senior campaign, over 1,000 yards and 12 touchdowns. But there's a young man, Parker Washington, here from the state of Texas, that I know is back for Penn State. Is he kind of the first in line as far as replacing Dotson's output? And what have you made of, or what is the expected, I guess, leap for Washington this year?
Nice tie into local. Parker, you're welcome. Parker was the number one guy following Dotson. Mitchell Tinsley, who came from Western Kentucky, where they passed 4 times out of every 5 downs. He's come in. He's a portal guy. So he's come in, literally taken over Dotson's spot and Dotson's number. But Parker Washington, I'm not saying this because he's from Texas. There's so much to like about that kid. I was talking to someone about him the other day. He's a smart kid. He's thoughtful. He has a great personality. He's wily, and he's still a little under the radar. He has big league potential, and I think having Tinsley there will actually open up even more opportunities for Parker than they did with Dotson there. Because Dotson was more of a, Dotson was a little bit of what Parker was across the middle of the field guy, short guy. Tinsley's more of a deep guy, so. It's a good move for Parker with Tinsley coming in, I think.
As you know, Mike, you and I spoke earlier today. That's State College, Matt Rule background, and of course, Penn State and the connection to Baylor and what he did to help turn them around. They're now struggling in year 3 at Carolina. Your thoughts about your you just know a little bit about Matt Rule and your thoughts about him.
Matt's, I'm sure they do other college areas, but Matt's Italian. His reputation is well-deserved, sincere, honest, genuine guy. Grew up in State College, was not a great player, but every time he's come back, he's been good. And quite honestly, if Franklin had gone, the two guys who were the 1 and 2 candidates, and speaking of Texas, Penn State would have hired Bill O'Brien or they would have hired Matt Rule if James had left, and both guys wanted the job.
Mike, the schedule for Penn State is not it's not forgiving. I mean, Purdue right off the bat, at Auburn, which they're in flux, but still going to Jordan-Hare, not an easy thing. Michigan, Ohio State, and Michigan State all on the schedule. And so there's not really a lot of gimmies once they get into it. Is there a buffer zone for James Franklin on this for people to maybe re-embrace him, or is the schedule maybe not the best for a transitional year for them?
Great question. Sure, if they start out strong, they will embrace him. But last year they started 5-0, and then they only won 2 games the rest of the way. There's that potential. I think really James's Achilles heel is going to be Drew Aller, 6'5", 220 guy. He's got a massive arm. He really, if you're looking at practice, he looks like a junior Josh Allen. And it's just like if Clifford, who's in year 6 with the program, if he falters early, the fans are going to turn and they're going to want Aller. And I got to tell you, from the limited window in practice, Aller is a freaking stud.
Hey, Mike, again, statecollege.com covers Penn State with us on Sikkim 365 Radio. You can follow him at PSU Porman on Twitter as well. Thanks for your time. We appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for asking, guys. Take care.
You too. Mike Porman covers Penn State. And James Franklin started in 2014. He's 65-28, 40-23 in the conference, of course. Had a couple of teams that were right there on the edge, but the last couple of years, COVID year was bad, but it was for many. And then last year, they kind of just dangled in many ways, as he mentioned as well. When we come back, Texas, year 2 of Steve Sarkisian. What's up with them? Next on Sikkim 365 Radio and 365 Sports. Well, Blake Blackmar was in studio. You saw the brisket that he cooked, and you can get that kind of product, that kind of elite product from the butcher shop at Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco. And, of course, if you want your steaks, but beef, pork, poultry, and seafood, including their salmon, Norwegian salmon, that's absolutely delicious. You can call ahead. Too late this week, but anytime between next week, anytime before 6 o'clock on Wednesday, 30-pound sacks of live crawfish. The price this week was $3.15 a pound. It was over $4 when they opened up the live crawfish season just a few weeks ago. And, of course, the bakery, fresh baked bread and kolaches every day. And the necessities you need, like a hometown grocery store with spices and seasonings and much more. Cold drinks and, well, the beer and wine when you walk in the door off to the right-hand side. Waco Custom Marketplace, your hometown grocery store at 425 Lake Air Drive in Waco.
Payments for qualified buyers at 2.9% for 72 months with $5,000 down cash or trade. TTL Extra. See dealer for details.
Summer driving is coming. Save now at Richard Carr's Summer is Coming savings event. Find summer savings like a 2015 GMC Sierra 2500 HD for $318 a month, or 2020 Buick Encore for $288 a month, or get a 2015 Cadillac SRX for $212 a month. Our vehicles go through a 172-point inspection, and we pay top dollar for your trade. 100% approval is always our goal.
At Richard Carr, we give you more.
It takes time to reach goals. It's a truth that applies to more than sports. It goes for your financial goals as well. You work hard for your money, and you deserve an investment strategy that lines up with your game plan. And Tom Albers, your Edward Jones financial advisor, can help. If your financial investments aren't putting forth the effort you desire, stop by today for a financial review. Tom Albers, 4301 Lakeshore Drive, 254-776-7605. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be a part of the Waco community. We're a small family business right here in Central Texas, and our goal is to bring down the cost of healthcare while maintaining high quality. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important, and unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. That's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through the difficult time. We offer premium MRIs just like a hospital with state-of-the-art technology and specialists, but you'll pay less. Sometimes thousands of dollars less, whether you're using insurance or not. At Ideal MRI, we accept most insurance and there are no hidden costs, even offering financing if that's needed. Everything included in the price, and you'll not get something as a surprise in the mail later on. If you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. They'll know. You can schedule an appointment safely from home online in minutes at idealmri.com or give us a call, 833-IDEAL-MRI, idealmri.com.
You know what would make this moment better? Pizza. Dough made from scratch and an Italian family sauce recipe pizza. 3 fresh signature cheeses making a melty blanket of perfection pizza. Like loads of premium toppings like crispy Old World pepperoni, savory Italian sausage, and fresh sliced veggies pizza. That's Marco's Pizza. Visit marcos.com and make any moment better. And with 4 locations in Waco, Belmead, China Spring, Woodway, and soon to open in Robinson. Marco's. Pizza lovers get it.
Don Humidor, your home with a 48-foot walk-in humidor with the elite cigar brands from around the world, including the #1 cigar of the year, Aging Room Cuatro Nicaragua. Plus, they have the great brands like Macanudo and Artur Fuente, Rocky Patel, Aston, and so much more. CBD, great for sore muscles, aches and pains, sleep, Vita Dreams, and anxiety, mild depression, general health and wellness. Their staff very knowledgeable on the subject. If anyone is curious about CBD, ask Carol and Ashley. Don Humidor in the Townwest Shopping Center off Valley Mills in Waco.
Baylor Scott & White, Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, hand or wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trusts. Baylor Scott & White, Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio.
Corral pumps. Pressure again, and they get to him. That was Cole Maxwell.
The 5 o'clock hour is brought to you by Edward Jones and financial advisor Cam Heathcott. Edward Jones, making sense of investing.
Now here's David Smoak, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoak.
Some of you have asked us about the T-shirt that Blake Blackmar is wearing with his culinary expertise, and we'll get that link to you up on Twitter. Brian Etheridge is the one that will help you with that. I just tweeted at him. We're now joined by Jeff Howe. Longhorn Blitz 247 Texas covers the Longhorns, and man, there's so much intrigue with what they have with so many new bells and whistles and weapons, and then others back as well. Jeff, thanks for your time. Has this been, and maybe what Texas needed, is just down, get your hands dirty type of spring, or is it been that kind of mentality?
It's kind of been that way, Smokey. Kind of a boring spring, I guess. Not a lot of hoopla going on. I think the quarterback battle. I think for me covering it, having been in this exact situation last year with just a few different faces, Casey Thompson out, Quinn Ewers in. I think everybody knew going in wasn't going to be decided by tomorrow night. It's not going to be decided by tomorrow night. It's going to take the summer and maybe a couple of camp scrimmages. But yeah, I think in a lot of ways, Smokey was kind of a back to basics spring. Really just focusing on some of that fundamental stuff that let Texas down last year. Attention to detail, tackling, blocking, just kind of your X's and O's. And I think, Steve Sarkisian understands that they've got a lot of work to do. But I think overall, he's pretty pleased. Whether you're talking about the quarterback battle, some reshuffling they've done in the secondary, a couple guys emerging on defense in some spots where they needed to have some guys step up and feel like they've got guys they can count on now in some spots. I think he feels like they've had a really productive spring, and I think that's probably what Texas fans will see tomorrow night, a team that still got some work to do, but in some key spots compared to last year, maybe ahead of where they were at this time going into 21.
If Hudson Card beats out Quinn Ewers eventually for the starting job, will they be back in the same spot they were last year with him and Casey Thompson, or will that mean that Hudson Card has really taken big steps forward?
I think he's taken steps forward, Paul. The big thing in this quarterback battle, we've seen it in the few practices that we've been able to see. You hear it from sources, and there's video clips floating out there. You can't deny the arm talent that Quinn Ewers has. And when he's locked in, when everything is right, he looks every bit the kid he looked like in South Lake Carroll, just doing it at this level with his ability to just flat out fling the football. But Hudson Card has by no means been bad this spring. I think what's really been interesting to see is the growth of both of these guys, both from different levels. For Quinn Ewers, it's just kind of digesting the offense one day, taking it in, and then taking that to the classroom or the practice field or whatever the next day, and then just kind of building on it. They haven't tried to give him too much and kind of do a sink or swim mentality with him. They've really just kind of steadily brought him along, and I think that's really helped his growth. With Hudson Card, there is some next level stuff he can do now in terms of really digging in to the kind of the nitty gritty and getting granular with this offense and what Sark and AJ Millie and that staff want to do. So again, two guys at different stages of growth, but I think the growth trajectory for both has been really good. But there's a reason, Paul. Look, if you just wanted to go today, if Sark had to make a call today, you'd say, okay, does he go with go with the guy that's more talented with more upside? But there's a reason why he hasn't called this competition yet, and that's because Hudson Card, I think, in a different way than he did last year, is going to make this a really tough call for Sark at the end of the day.
Jeff, you'll bear with me, a two-parter of a question here. First of all, your thoughts on the recent transfer addition of Ajayi Hall, the wide receiver from Alabama, and in line with that, you've got Quinn Ewers, you've got Watts, you've got Billingsley, you've got Nayor, you've got Hall now. There's been a number of incoming transfers. So your thoughts on Hall, and then also of those guys that have come in, who do you think is the most important pickup outside of Ewers, obviously, as a quarterback that they brought in?
Yeah, with Hall, Craig, there's no doubt. I mean, the kid is insanely talented. It's funny. How's this for randomness? So Ajayi Hall's high school coach in Florida, I actually played high school football with in Florence, Texas, USA. As weird, as crazy as that is. So I've gotten a little bit of insight on the kid. He is a kid that is a little bit of a wild card, a kid you have to reel in, but that is doable, and it is something that if he's put in the right environment. Now, that brings up a whole different ball of wax of is the current culture within the football program at Texas the right environment for him to thrive in? Time will tell. But this kid is insanely talented, and in terms of pure talent, I think you're really only talking about Xavier Worthy in terms of being better than him. And I know that's a relative term, but if you just stack everybody up and look at them on paper, that's the only guy I think that you would definitively take over him. But there's going to be a lot of work to be done to get him to the point where he can get into that top 4 or 5 wide receiver group. As far as the other pickups, it's really a tough call for two different reasons for me, Craig. On one hand, I really like Isaiah Nayor, the vertical playmaking dynamic he brings to the table, and that he's brought to the table this spring. Xavier Worthy was a guy that could stretch the field, but I think now when you've got a guy that you can stick on the field side and legitimately threaten to take the top off of defense every play, that can go down the field and make contested catches, a guy that once Jordan Whittington went down last year, Texas really didn't have a guy that could do that. And, Whittington's injury, it was really compounded because when he went out, that was when the schedule flipped and you ran into Oklahoma State and Baylor and Iowa State and some of the tougher defenses that you had to play last year. You had to do that without Whittington on the field. So I just think Nayor, the dynamic he brings to the table, is really impressive. With Jaleel Billingsley, I really struggling to remember the last time Texas had a tight end. I mean, seriously, you might have to go all the way back to Jermichael Finley to find a tight end Texas had that could legitimately threaten a defense vertically the way this kid can. Now, is he an elite blocker? No. Are there things he can't do that you would like an every down tight end to do? Yeah, there are things he can't do you would like an every down tight end to do. But with as much two tight end personnel as Steve Sarkisian likes to run, to have a guy that you can put him in line, you can put him at that H-back, you can shift him around, you can flex him, put him in the slot, do whatever. They haven't had a guy like this in a really, really long time, and it's giving them kind of a little buffer to get a couple of young guys like Jatavion Sanders and Gunnar Helm, kind of get them up to speed a little bit. So for different reasons, I think Nayor and Billingsley both are huge for this offense.
Well, we had Aaron Suttles, who covers Alabama for theathletic.com, and we asked him about Hall, and we kind of knew a little bit about him, but he couldn't stop talking or raving about Billingsley and did not understand why it didn't work last year at Alabama. That's always been great at using their tight ends. So that was the one he mentioned as well. It's good to hear you say that. So they have all this stuff. Do they have the nuts and bolts on the offense and defensive line?
It's a $64,000 question, Smokey. I mean, look, I've been asked on different podcasts and interviews, even my podcast and my shows and my writing. I said, hey, if you look at it on paper, you can say Texas has the best collection of offensive skill talent in the Big 12, and I don't know how many people would successfully argue that they don't. That and $5 will get you a cup of coffee at Starbucks because they've got so many issues still on the offensive line, and defensively they were so bad last year. Just at every level. I mean, they couldn't stop the run. They couldn't get after the quarterback. They couldn't play the ball in the air. There was really, at the end of the day, nothing that defense did last year that I think you could even look at and say, yeah, they were probably average at doing that. Everything was below average, just bad. Now, from an offensive line standpoint, you're really kind of, if you're starting Kyle Flood, you really got kind of two, what's the best bad idea you've got right now? Do you take what you got and just try to make it work and scheme around it, or do you get to a point, and I think in some respects Kyle Flood is probably already at this point, just with their numbers, I think he has to be, and just say, look, when DJ Campbell and Nato Meazulu and Kelvin Banks, when these guys get to campus, you've got to get them here in June right out the bat with the mindset of you guys need to be ready for that season opener against Louisiana Monroe to play and maybe start. I think that's what you've got to do. And I don't like starting through freshman offensive linemen. I think that's a really slippery slope. But I just don't think they have a choice. And there's a reason they recruited those guys. They're going to play the long game. They want to develop those guys and build it the right way. But I think they're just going to need to have some of those guys play because they just at some point they're just not going to have options if they just prove to be better in camp, or if you have some guys struggle. On the flip side of it, on defense, Smokey, they've got the bodies and they've got guys that are kind of proven commodities on that defensive line. And the guy that I've heard so much about this spring has been T'Vondre Swett, who's been a really productive player for them. I think last year you kind of saw him make some strides toward the end of the year, and I think a lot of that had to do with just missing so much time in the offseason recovering from a shoulder surgery. With Alfred Collins and Vernon Broughton, you've seen the flashes, but you're just looking for the consistency. I think with Moro Ojimo, it's kind of the opposite. He's a steady hand, but can you get those splash plays that you need from a defensive tackle in the system? And they've really overhauled what they've done on the edges. Justice Finkley is a mid-year guy, has already made an impact. I think that, Texas fans will see a lot of number one on the edge on Saturday, him getting some reps, right next to Ovia Gofu. Barron Sorrell's a guy that played a little bit as a true freshman last year, who's gotten himself into that mix. And there's a reason they're still pushing really hard for O'Shawn Mathis, TCU transfer, a guy who's a proven edge guy, proven pass rusher in this league, because they need as many bodies as they can who can win one-on-ones at the point of attack. They just didn't get enough of that last year. So I at least think, Smokey, from the line of scrimmage standpoint, they've got the pieces to be much better on defense. I just think at offense, you've just got to figure out at this point kind of what's your best bad idea and be prepared to go with it.
Is the world, and particularly the one of Austin, Texas, ready to let, and we did a topic last week about those ESPN power rankings that had Texas sixth and all that. It's not fair to Steve Sarkisian and to Texas to expect him to be 5-7 to great. I mean, can they let them grow at a reasonable rate as opposed to dry, barren crop into, tall ears of corn. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I like to think so, Paul. Here's why. I think I think we've talked about this before, but I think it's anytime I'm on with you guys, I think it's a good point to make, and I like hammering it home anytime that I can. Yeah, I get asked quite a bit. So what is the difference between Texas and Baylor? Why is Baylor, just from a football standpoint, why has Baylor been able to do this with 3 different head coaches? They've been able to kind of revamp it, and Texas has just been spinning their wheels. And I said because each time Baylor has needed to make a head coaching change, you go back to starting with Art Briles, they've done what Baylor's done, in my opinion, is I think what Texas did with Sark, is you took a good, honest, long look in the mirror at where you are, where you can be in the short term, and where you want to go. I don't think they did that with Charlie Strong, and in hindsight, I don't think they really did that with Tom Herman. But this is the first hire in the post-Mac Brown era where I felt like from an administrative standpoint, from a booster donor standpoint, from however you want to couch it, the powers that be that make the decisions in Texas all kind of decided, look, here's an honest assessment of where we are. This is where we feel like we can go in the short term to get to where we want to be in the long term. And that's why you can have, I think that's why from a fan base standpoint, I think by and large fans understand, they're not going to gamble on some guys in the transfer portal. They've taken guys as they needed them, but with the lines of scrimmage, they're going to load up on the lines of scrimmage in the recruiting class. They're going to try to really build this thing the right way. And I actually think the transition to the SEC from that standpoint, guys, I think it helps Texas because now if you want to play the long game, you've got that card you can pull with this fan base of saying, hey, yes, we want to be good in 2022, but we're trying to build this thing to where whether it's 23, 24, 25, whenever you go into the SEC, that you're in a much better position to compete in that league than you are right now. And that's going to take some time and building it the right way. So, guys, it's never 100% patience when you're talking about a place like Texas, but really since Sark was hired and even through the struggles last year, I haven't seen that kind of patience from this Texas fan base, and especially at an administrative level through all these struggles throughout the last 10 plus years.
Jeff, any more indication on just how involved Gary Patterson is or what effect he's had in his short time on campus?
Yeah, it's interesting, Craig. He's even guys on the team will tell you, I really don't know what his technically job title involves, but he's kind of doing a little bit of everything right now. And I think it goes back to what somebody close to him told me, when these discussions first got started, late November, early December. I think Gary Patterson looked at Texas with 2 things. One, I think there was an opportunity, his relationship with Chris Del Conte and their conversations. I think Gary Patterson kind of saw an opportunity to, and he said this on the record, to kind of be for Sark what Dick told me was for Mac Brown, in terms of a guy that can help set your culture, a guy that can be a sounding board, and a guy that can just kind of help you from an administrative standpoint check your blind spots. I think that's part of it. I think the other part, kind of more to the question, Craig, is he really wanted to get back to helping Texas get ready to make this transition to the SEC, and to do that really get back to who he is at his core, which is a guy who's great in terms of player development and talent evaluation. And from that standpoint, he's been really good with guys in terms of breaking down film and helping guys understand, tendencies, technique, and just breaking it down at a pretty rudimentary level. I've heard he's helped guys tremendously from that standpoint. I think that's why this role, just taking a step back from that daily grind that is being a college head coach and really kind of getting back to who he is at his core, I think it's going to, and it has already kind of recharged him a little bit. But that's kind of what it is, Craig. He is going to help in terms of scheme and things of that nature, kind of do and be whatever Sark needs him to do and wherever he needs him to be. But again, I just think getting back to helping, in terms of player development and doing some self-scout, that to me is where I've heard that he's really made the biggest impact so far this spring.
They have one more piece that they would like to add in the transfer portal with O'Shawn Mathis, the star from TCU that Patterson knows. He's been obviously heavily recruited. Others want him as well. Will you be shocked if he doesn't end up in Austin?
At this point, Smokey, yeah. I mean, Nebraska has made a really strong push for him. And I think has made things maybe a lot more interesting than a lot of people thought they would. But, he's going to use an official visit. Actually, his visit started today. He's on campus and will be on campus this week. And I just think when you look at all the advantages Texas has with him, you mentioned the relationship with Gary Patterson. He's from Manor. There's an immediate need for Texas to have an edge guy that can be an impact player from day one and can come in and start. Everything is trending Texas at this point. So if you're putting your money on where O'Shawn Mathis is going to end up, I think the smart money's very much on Texas right now.
Thank you, Jeff. Appreciate it, buddy. Great to hear from you. Enjoy tomorrow. Jeff Howe, 247 covers sports. 247 Sports covers Texas, the Longhorn Blitz, also on the local radio, one of the local radio shows down there as well. When we come back, Notre Dame. Year one of Marcus Freeman as the head coach. Brian Driscoll will join us. He covers the Irish with the Irish Breakdown. Next on Sikkim 365 Radio and 365 Sports. Dr. Kent Petty and his staff at PettyClinicLowT.com can help you become the high-performance man that you want to be and maybe used to be. As you grow older, Father Time can do things to you. Well, it's just part of life. But one of those things is 1 out of every 3 men have symptomatic issues of low testosterone, including what could affect your sex drive. If that is happening to you, look at all the commercials you now see on television. Testosterone could be the issue. And if it is, Dr. Petty will find out. Contact him, PettyClinicLowT.com, email and phone number on the top left-hand corner. Tell him I sent you. And by the way, he will set you up to get your blood work. He will look at your lab results. And if your testosterone level is too low, he has a program that can put you in to help you increase your testosterone levels and you go back to being the high-performance man that you want to be. It could be your sex drive. It also could be sleep habits and your energy. PettyClinicLowT.com.
It's Ram Truck Month at Allen Samuels, where you can get a new 2022 Ram 1500 Quad Cab Lone Star with values up to $6,500, or get $3,000 bonus cash and 2.9% for 72 months. First responders get an extra $500. This year's incredible deals are at Allen Samuels in Waco. Take home power, performance, and reliability with your new 2022 Ram today.
Come by. Let's be friends.
See dealer for details. All offers have credit requirements.
From the first workout to the last practice, sports is an incredible and rewarding challenge. Hi, this is Dan Ingham with the First National Bank of Central Texas, and we're proud to support each athlete, every parent, and our educators. From families, small businesses, to the biggest industry, we're here to help. With remarkable products like our free First mobile app, we've got banking ideas that fuel big dreams. That's the First National Bank of Central Texas. Familiar faces making local decisions.
Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
You want to know why Stonewood Dental is so successful? Listen to what happy customers have to say.
It's pleasant. It's different than any other dentist office. I really feel like they care. And it's not that you're here for 2 hours waiting on someone to take care of you. It's quick and easy, and I bring my kids, and my kids love being here too. They really love the treasure box. Staff is really nice and accommodating, real friendly. You feel more like home. It's not sterile looking. Everybody has their own personalized rooms with decorations and decor, and they'll even have a blanket for you when it's cold. I've recommended people to actually come here, and they are patients now. I really love it here. It feels like family.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
Parenting is full of surprises.
You never know what to expect.
So after our son was born, I called my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent to set up a life insurance policy in case something happened to me.
Sawyer is now 2.
And we'll soon have a sister. There's no one else I would trust with protecting my family.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.
Stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. See all the things they can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
Automatic Chef Canteen is a full-service micro-market vending and office coffee provider with state-of-the-art vending equipment, a wide variety of products, and offering custom-fitted micro-market vending office coffee solutions for your employee break room. You want a full break room solution and a workplace oasis? Well, Automatic Chef Canteen, locally owned and operated for over 50 years in Central Texas, also includes in-house mechanics on call 24/7 for fast, reliable service and maintenance. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchefcanteen.com.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio.
The Sikkim 365 radio app is sponsored by Alan Samuels Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat in Waco. Your friend in the car business at Loop 340 and east of 84. Come by. Let's be friends.
Brian Driscoll, Irish Breakdown, joins us on Sikkim 365 Radio, 365 Sports. In the studio today, Paul, Catalina, Craig Smoak. I'm David Smoak, and also Emery Winter and Armstrong Sims are here. Brian, thank you for your time. So Brian Kelly's obviously a very successful coach at LSU. He's been successful, did a lot of good things there. Is there any kind of sense that they feel not better, but Marcus Freeman might bring some breath of fresh air to take him to another level?
There's certainly that. I think it's not only that Marcus Freeman can take Notre Dame to another level, because I think everybody agreed, whether you're pro Brian Kelly or someone like me who maybe wasn't a huge fan of Brian Kelly and think sometimes they won in spite of Brian Kelly, that there's a breath of fresh air simply because of the type of person Marcus Freeman is compared to Brian Kelly. You know, I just think it's after 12 years, I don't really care who you are. You kind of sometimes just are ready for a fresh voice, right? And I think that's where a lot of Notre Dame fans are, even a lot of Brian Kelly supporters. It was time for a change. And then, of course, Brian Kelly's recent comments, to be honest with you, about Notre Dame and taking shots at players and Jack Swarbrick and people like that, I think kind of cost him some of his supporters in South Bend that remain. So I think everybody's ready to move on and get a fresh start under Marcus Freeman.
All right, so, Brian, I guess the big question will be quarterback and how do they, with Tommy Rees, move this offense forward? Because I think people will probably, with Marcus Freeman bringing in Al Golden, they've got some experience. They've got, he's still a defensive mind. It's the offense that people are wondering about.
Oh, absolutely, and rightfully so. I mean, Notre Dame's been really good on defense for several years. Going back to 2017 and really took off in 2018. It's the offense that's always been their undoing. And so that's going to remain the question. It was the question under Brian Kelly. And, that's always the challenge for defensive coaches. I feel like defensive coaches are prone to making one of the big mistakes. We saw that. I'm a Denver Bronco fan. We saw that with Vic Fangio the last several years, which is in this modern era, still thinking you can win 17 to 14 football games. You've got to be able to score. And that's where we're going to find out. I think we saw glimpses of it late last season when, Brian Kelly sort of backed off of the offense late last year, and Tommy Rees had more and more control. And, Notre Dame's offense in the last 6 games averaged over 40 points a game. They lost the bowl game, but, some of the optimism was that they passed for over 500 yards against an Oklahoma State defense that, had been top 10 all year and had 300-yard receivers in the game against an Oklahoma State defense that only allowed one 100-yard receiver all season. So there's some optimism, but, bowl games are bowl games, right? And I think we all know that bowl games only tell you so much. You got to see if you can consistently do it week after week after week. And let's be honest, guys, this schedule Notre Dame's about to face in 2022 is on a whole different level than the one they faced in 2021 when Notre Dame went 11-2 without beating a single ranked team all year.
Brian, in terms of who leaves the biggest shoes to fill player-wise, who would you say that is?
That's a really good question. I would say Kevin Austin. And that doesn't mean that Kevin Austin is the best player they lost. Kyle Hamilton's the best player they lost. That's not even a question. But, they did get an All-American transfer in from Northwestern and Brandon Joseph. And Notre Dame had to play 6 games last year without Kyle Hamilton. So, they've kind of got some experience with that. Kyron Williams is a great player, but they're loaded at backfield. I think, Notre Dame last offseason had 5 receivers leave the team with multiple years of eligibility remaining. And the receiver depth chart right now, they're down to 4 healthy scholarship players for the spring. So, if Kevin Austin would have chose to come back and he had eligibility left, I think that there'd be a lot less angst about the receiver position. So just from a need standpoint and what comes back, I think Kevin Austin's got whoever's going to step into that role has bigger shoes to fill than, let's say Brandon Joseph replacing Kyle Hamilton, because he's not Kyle Hamilton, but he was still an All-American 2 years ago. He's a good football player. Right now, there's a lot of uncertainty about who that guy is going to be that replaces Kevin Austin.
Brian, a listener of our show who also is the one that led me to getting in contact with you, he's from the 202 area code, and he brought this up about Marcus Freeman, if there's any questions about him, and obviously you mentioned the schedule, and my God, it is going to be interesting to see how they maneuver through that. But has Freeman gotten maybe more questions about him than perhaps Ryan Day had taking over for Urban Meyer, or Lincoln Riley had when he took over for Bob Stoops?
I don't think so. I think Marcus Freeman has established himself. I think the only difference is those guys had been at those programs for a little bit longer than Marcus Freeman. So like Lincoln Riley had been the offense coordinator at least 2 years, right, at Oklahoma. I believe Ryan Day had been at Ohio State for 2 years. I think that's the only difference. They're similar in age. Marcus Freeman had established himself as a brilliant defensive mind. We're talking about Kyle Hamilton being potentially a top 10 pick. Well, Sauce Gardner is also potentially going to be a top 10 pick, and he was recruited by and developed by primarily Marcus Freeman. So he's proven himself as a great defensive mind. I think the questions about him as a head coach are the same ones that we had about Lincoln Riley going in, and it worked out, and it worked out for Ohio State. But we've seen other scenarios where a guy takes over and it doesn't work out. So I think there's always questions about a guy doing a job that he's never done before. But I think when you look at his attention to detail, his success as a coordinator, the way that players relate to him, and the biggest thing for me for a young coach is what kind of hires do you make? And for him to go out and bring in a veteran like Al Golden, I don't think that's getting enough attention. For a 36-year-old head coach to bring in a 51-year-old guy from the NFL who's been a head coach, I think says a lot about Marcus Freeman's in this, not saying, hey, it's not about my ego and all these type of things. You're bringing in a guy that's going to have very strong opinions to say, hey, you're going to do the job that I did before. I think speaks volumes of bringing in, obviously, Harry Hiestand. He made it's been a great hire so far, getting Chancey Stuckey from Baylor. Obviously, that's worked out really well. He's a great fit at Notre Dame. So he put together a really good veteran staff. Not so much old staff, but veteran staff. And I think that shows me that he's a coach that understands, hey, I'm 36. I've never been head coach. I don't have all the answers. I need to make sure that between myself and my staff that we're going to be able to have the answers. And that's a good sign. Now we got to see if it's going to pay off when we get to the season.
The shot that Brian Kelly took at Notre Dame was kind of about the recruiting restrictions you have with the the academics and all that, and that LSU doesn't have those same things. And obviously he's putting out videos and doing things at LSU that shows that maybe he's rolling out the red carpet there. But what is the energy that Marcus Freeman has brought that's different than Brian Kelly shown up in recruiting so far in just a couple of months?
Well, he works. I mean, that's the biggest thing. Brian Kelly do all the photo ops he wants, but the problem is Brian Kelly would, and this is coming from players' mouths, he would meet them in January when they came back from the winter, and then he'd be gone until spring ball started. They would not have as many junior days and summer visits because Brian Kelly was out of town. He didn't work. That's the problem. He didn't work. And he can shoot all the videos of him grinding on players all he wants. The reality is recruiting is about building relationships. Relationships take time. Brian Kelly wasn't willing to invest the time. Marcus Freeman works. It's not a coincidence, fellas, that Notre Dame in the 1 year with Marcus Freeman and that last year's class, the 2022 class, was driven by the defense, was Notre Dame's best class in almost 10 years. It's not a surprise that Notre Dame currently sits with the number one ranked class in the country since Marcus Freeman has arrived. The recruiting restriction stuff that Brian Kelly talked about was a lot of just the typical Brian Kelly spin. Brian Kelly making excuses for things he didn't do at Notre Dame. As if, they lost to Tulsa in 2010 because they don't have a chef on campus, that kind of thing. Like, no, it's because you made bad coaching decisions. And that's who Brian Kelly always was. I kind of like to joke that, Brian Kelly during his tenure went 113-0. Notre Dame, it's in restrictions, and its players went 0-39, meaning Brian Kelly was never the reason they ever lost the game. It was always somebody else. And I think that more than anything is what many Notre Dame fans, including myself, are just glad that it's gone.
Brian, we know with Notre Dame, the brand is huge, and there are things like academics, like the guys mentioned, that are a little bit different there. But the brand is massive. How do you feel like Notre Dame has, with what's at their disposal, navigated the NIL landscape we've all become accustomed to, and the transfer portal landscape we've all become accustomed to now as well?
Well, Notre Dame can't do a ton in the transfer portal, and that's one of the unique things that Notre Dame does have to make some moves on. So it's a little bit of a different situation there. They were able to get Brandon Joseph as an undergrad, but normally Notre Dame can really only make moves in the graduate transfer market because it's actually far harder to transfer to Notre Dame as an undergrad than it is to get in out of high school. Significantly harder. So they're still trying to navigate that. The NIL is still a work in progress, right? I mean, the one thing about Notre Dame, like it or not, they're gonna try to do things a certain way. So they're a little bit slower reacting to some of this big, NIL stuff. Notre Dame players are getting deals. I was told that one of their best players coming back this year just signed just got a $40,000 signing bonus for a marketing deal that he's going to do. Isaiah Foskey has his own clothing line now. So they're making money, but there hasn't been this big, infusion of cash that you're seeing from a lot of these other schools. Well, Brady Quinn just announced this week that him and Tom Mendoza, who is the person who they named the Mendoza School of Business at Notre Dame after, along with some other former players, have started a thing called FUND, Friends of University of Notre Dame. That's meant to help raise money for players to be involved in charity work, things like that they can make money off of. There's a couple other things. NBC Sports just launched an NIL deal that they're signed with Notre Dame. There's other few things in the pipeline, but it's taking a little bit longer because there's a lot more hoops you have to jump through, at Notre Dame than to do other things, but they're getting there. And look, this is a point Brady Quinn made to me in an interview I did with him. Notre Dame has the 8th biggest endowment in the country, including like the Ivies and things like that. And yet they're one of the smallest student bodies. So there's plenty of money out there to be had. You just got to try to find the right way to get it to players where it's done legally and within the spirit of what the NIL is supposed to be about.
By the way, Brian, Craig just showed me this. Darryl LaMonica, the former great Oakland Raiders quarterback, passed away. Is that correct?
Yeah, passed away at 80 years old. Yep. Former Notre Dame player as well.
One of the first Raider quarterbacks that just chunked it. And he had the people that chunk it too, and they were really good. He died today. Just saw that at the age yesterday at the age of 80. So there's a Notre Dame note as well. Brian, thank you, man. Good stuff. Look forward to it. Can't wait to talk to you again when we get close to the start of the season.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me on, guys.
Brian Driscoll, Irish Breakdown, is part of SI Now, with us on Sikkim 365 Radio and 365 Sports. Here's a note, by the way, from the NIL. This came from Winter Sports Law. Tennessee, the state of Tennessee, has removed a provision in its NIL law that prohibited entities whose purpose is supporting / benefited an athletics program from doing deals with current prospective athletes that are contingent on enrollment, participation in athletics at a school. And then Darren Heitner, who's kind of like our good friend Dan Lust, sports law, we can call this the Nico Amendment. He's the one that is allegedly, or not allegedly, the speculation is he's getting a bunch of money. So there's a story out of the state of Tennessee.
Yeah, I think the far more bigger story in NIL today is Oklahoma announcing $50,000 for everybody who plays football for them. I mean, that was announced earlier today, and I sure would love to see any Oklahoma fan who was complaining like 2 weeks ago about NIL for some other school or Texas offering linemen money or whatever, because as of today, it appears, and Barry Switzer is a part of the group, it looks like that they're going to be offering $50K to every single scholarship player. And I don't know, I guess basically just be on the team and you get $50,000. I don't know the details beyond that, but Oklahoma has jumped headfirst into the deep end of NIL.
Barry Switzer, we changed the game in 1981 at Oklahoma by being a pioneer for schools to negotiate their own contracts and generate additional revenue. We are changing the game again with One Oklahoma Collective. Through NIL, every player, as you mentioned, Craig, the opportunity to earn somewhere between $40,000 and $50,000 a year while positively impacting the community.
Okay, so that is $4.25 million in a pot, which sounds like a lot of money for anybody else, but you think about the grand scheme of college athletics, it is not hard to find $4.25 million a year as a base for something, especially at a place like Oklahoma, when it comes to that. And a place... And here, also when you say, like, look, here, donate to this thing, and then it's all the same, and you have that base layer, that's a lot simpler than, like, saying, okay, well, we've got to get this guy $85,000, we got to get this guy $106,000, and, like, everybody's going to get $50,000. So they have their base layer, and now they can go off of that.
Yeah, it's part of what we have. And Craig, glad you brought that up. By the way, this is a funny tweet at Texas T-shirt fan. It's just a little bit sarcastic. Breaking: Oklahoma players will be asked to donate a percentage of their NIL money towards the university's buyout from the Big 12.
They need a lot more than that.
They're going to need a hell of a lot more than $50,000.
Need about
times all the athletes
20
we're
football
talking
teams getting $4+ million to get that price tag. But yeah, that's funny. And I know Billy Liucci from Texags, I guess he got harassed by Oklahoma fans over NIL or they were complaining about it or whatever. And so he's having fun today at their expense, and rightfully so, because, I'm sure there are a lot of people who are, well, it's NIL, and now they're, donating their next paycheck to get Oklahoma that next 5-star running back or whatever. So, you don't like it until you're involved, and all of a sudden it's okay. And I think everybody's learning that. Everybody's going to realize, like, you're either on board or you're going to fall behind. I mean, that's bottom line. And not every school is going to be able to pay every player on the team $50,000. But, I don't know that it necessarily makes you a better team in the long run. You might have more talent, but I don't know that it makes you a better team. It's great for the players. But, yeah, Oklahoma's, digging in and, getting ready for – the SEC.
Well, there you go. And it is interesting, those schools who are already doing something like that, all of a sudden, who have taken heat, yeah, you're right, all of a sudden, wait a minute, you can't. Yeah, you can. Everybody can. And it's just starting. And we're only about a year or so into this, the NIL. When we come back, Paul Catalina's top 5 to wrap up the week. Oh, by the way, Armstrong, another NIL deal. The Cavender twins from Fresno State University, the basketball twins, have transferred and committed to Miami.
Not that Fresno is some sort of wasteland, but when it comes to NIL and basketball players, I'm not trying to knock it, but compared to what these two are trying to accomplish from a marketing and business standpoint, Miami is a much better place for them. Much better.
Yeah. By the way, when we had Brian Driscoll on, the Notre Dame schedule, I got to bring it up. It is nuts. Ohio State. Obviously, they have the Stanford, who was way down last year. But Brigham Young, Clemson, USC, and North Carolina, see if they bounce back under your, 3 or 4 under Mac Brown. So, all right. Craig, you were going to say something else about the Cavender twins?
No, I mean, I don't even know how good they are. I know next to nothing about them except for I guess they're attractive, and that's why. But I assume they're good too. I'm not trying to knock it. I hear them brought up like they're very well known, but I'm not in the Instagram, TikTok, circle, so I miss out on most of that. But they've obviously been, one of the most benefited from NIL.
I'm just saying, the TikTok background of Miami and South Beach is probably much more effective for them in a marketing sense than.
Well, they averaged 34 points combined a year, the last year.
Oh, I'm not denying.
I'm not saying. I'm just giving. I didn't know what they were. They also averaged 13 rebounds. In fact, Haley averaged 19.8 and 10 rebounds a game. So they're both pretty good. So that's a nice addition for Miami women's basketball.
And this is what, to me, this is the true benefit of NIL for the sponsors, because they are social media superstars, and that's what these people want when they're giving money to players. There's some benefit here that, look, people are going to see what they do and where they go and what they, so the product's going to get out there for the market they're trying to get, which is not the three of us. There's nothing that they do that we're probably ever going to buy.
No.
But, there are a lot of people who are like, oh, look at them. I do that.
I'll certainly never be convinced to buy something because they're pitching it. You know what I mean? But, I'm not, like I said, I'm not that TikTok, Instagram crowd that they're after. So I'm not the target. But, good for them. And I know Miami also got Caleb Johnson, which Max Olson had kind of referred to yesterday, the linebacker from UCLA in Texas. So he's Miami bound now. Big day
he said that too, didn't he? Max hit that. Yeah.
Well, look, I'm old now because I'm over 40. So, I mean, I saw Tom Selleck selling reverse mortgages. So I think I'm going to get one of those because that's Magnum PI.
Yeah, go get that done, Paul. John Hammond talking about Notre Dame as always are seemingly overrated. I said, who do you think annually is overrated the most? That's very difficult as teams change from year to year.
Well, it depends on what we're talking about. If we're talking preseason top 25s or if we're talking about just in general. But I don't know, man. I mean, they've gotten in the playoff, and there's no denying the schedule they play. I mean, year in and year out, they don't fall victim to the Pac-12's down this year, so Notre Dame didn't play anybody, or Big 12, not being in a conference, just playing whoever the hell you want. They get a stacked schedule every single year. So I'm very curious to see how Marcus Freeman does. Obviously, there's a lot of bad blood with Brian Kelly and a lot of excitement over Freeman. And, hope he does well and maybe brings obviously is already bringing a new approach and new flavor for that program. So it'll be interesting to see.
Two big boys in Oklahoma and Notre Dame had coaches who left. They're not used to that happening very often at Notre Dame and Oklahoma. So this is the most random of all in Paul's top 5. I saw this on Twitter. This is a girl named @DevonDonuts. I don't know who that is. But she pointed out this picture. Roommate wanted. Single male who's 44 searching for a roommate. Must be female aged 18 to 25, single. Must be willing to cook and clean. Is this Cam Newton? 1-bedroom apartment. You can use the couch. And if you are comfortable enough to share the bedroom. No pets, no drinking, no drugs, no male friends allowed. My home has a no closed doors policy. This is for safety. $400 a month. Call Owen.
Owen's going to have a problem filling that role. Owen's also going to have a problem maybe meeting anyone ever again because that's creepy AF.
Very. And then, of course, there were responses of others very similar apparently to Owen, and Cam Newton said, hey, hold my beer. All right, when we come back, Paul Catalina's top 5. Sick 'em. 365 Radio, 365 Sports.
Baylor University is where lights shine bright. So, let there be light. Let there be roommates and teammates, scholarship and championships. Let there be fresh starts and new traditions, fast friendships and lasting impacts. Let there be laughter. Let there be joy. Let there be light. Baylor University, where lights shine bright.
It's plain and simple. Waco Custom Marketplace is the one-stop shop for what you need for tailgating, from charcoal, cold beer, and wine. And, of course, customize your order with brisket, tri-tip, sausage, wings, smoked pork tenderloin, country-style or pork spare ribs, marinated beef and chicken fajita meat, ground beef and chili, meat, hot dogs, and burgers, buns, seasoning, sauces, chips. There's fresh baked bread and kolaches every day, breakfast sausage links. And you can also customize your favorite cut of steaks from select, choice, or prime, bacon wrap fillets, ribeyes, New York strip, sirloin, T-bone, and porterhouse. Full service butcher shop includes pork, poultry, beef, chicken, and seafood, serving Waco restaurants and families since 1940. Your one-stop shop for beef, pork, poultry, and seafood needs. Waco Custom Marketplace, 425 Lake Erie Drive, or WacoCustomMarketplace.com.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive, North 19th Street, right behind the bank, is a hidden gem in Waco. If you're a fan of bourbon, especially local Texas bourbons, that's where you gotta go. Balcones, TX, Devil's River, whatever it is, they've got it. Riverbend Liquor and Wine, plus the best selection of craft beers in Waco, seasonally churned out throughout the year. Whether it's spring, summer, fall, or winter, Riverbend Liquor and Wine, best selection of craft beers, a speedy drive-through window, and excellent customer service. Find out more on Instagram or just go by and see them. Lakeshore Drive at North 19th Street behind the bank.
Brad Boozer, Boozer's Jeweler, joins us on Sick 'em 365 Radio. I've seen people walk in there. First of all, you have so much to show, whether necklaces, bracelets, rings. You have the watches. You have numerous great watches as well. You really have pretty much everything, don't you, when it comes to jewelry?
That's correct. Kind of a one-stop shop and all. And the fact that we have the 2 jewelers on staff, the repairs we can do, the fixing of your jewelry, and the remaking of any jewelry has really set us apart from anybody else.
You want to know why they're successful? Brad Boozer, the owner of Boozer's Jewelers on the corner of Valley Mills and Lake Erie in Waco.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Nitchie Group Insurance Agency. With the Nitchie Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Nitchie Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Nitchie Group at 1-800-258-8302.
One size fits all. That may be all right for an adjustable belt or cheap sunglasses, but when it comes to your financial needs, no one wants a one-size-fits-all strategy. Ben Erlinson, your Edward Jones financial advisor, knows that his most important goals are yours. That's why he takes the time to understand your needs, knowing you. That's how Edward Jones makes sense of investing. Ben Erlinson, 100 North 6th Street in Waco, 254-759-8533. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio. This is Paul Catalina's Top 5 at 5:55, presented by Champion Salon and Barber. To book your appointment, go to championsalonandbarber.com.
Top 5 incorrect assumptions fans make about spring games. Well, earlier in the show, and if you missed that part of the show, we were talking about the things that you can glean from a spring game. But I do think that there are fans who put way too much into it, so I wanted to go through some of those top 5 things that you hear after, during, before spring games about it. Number 5, this is the best practice of the year. Actually, we just heard from Blake Blackmar that usually the spring game's the worst one.
Yeah.
Because it's the last one.
Yeah.
So if you are going in thinking you're going to see the best practice of the year, you're probably not, but that doesn't really mean anything. So just go in, look for certain things, but don't expect to see them at their maybe absolute best because, again, it's the last practice. There's a different atmosphere. Some schools do it differently, and it's not, it doesn't have to be the best practice of the year. They've got time to fix what's going on if it doesn't work out that way.
Yeah. I mean, it's a spring game.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Number 4, that you're seeing anything that counts. Like nothing they're seeing counts. So don't freak out about one thing or another. I think people get excited. I remember when I was in college, you get real excited about the third string quarterback who you think is better than the other two, but you don't think about who he's actually in the game against other third stringers. So he might be the best third stringer, but he's still a third stringer.
Yeah, and I think that's probably what I, more than anything else, was referencing to a spring game. You're going to have, just like in training camp and at NFL, wide receivers always look better than they really are, especially ones that that never make the team because they're getting most of the reps, or they're getting a lot of the reps that you see the skill people. But yeah, I don't know now last year, again, there were a couple of things we did see that you could tell that
it informs you.
Yes,
but it doesn't.
No,
it can.
No.
Yeah. Number 3, if someone plays poorly, it changes their whole career. I've heard, he struggled in the spring mightily. Well, it's a spring. Was he banged up? Was it, they don't have a game coming up for 4 more months, so just cut him a break. It just, remember you're watching, maybe not the best practice of the year. Might be middle of the road at best sometimes, even for good teams. That could be the case for Alabama last week. Wasn't their best practice of the year. Are they going to be the best team this year? Probably. Don't freak out.
Yep.
Number 2, this walk-on scored a long touchdown. We should play him more. Not necessarily. Cool your jets. Everybody's happy that he had his moment, and people got to see it.
That's more like an NFL training camp.
Number 2.
Exactly.
Yeah. The Cowboys training camp, it's always, man, this receiver's fast. Yeah, they're all fast. That's how they got here.
Yep.
And if you're a walk-on, especially at an FBS school, especially at a good FBS school, you're probably still a pretty good athlete, but not necessarily better than the guys who are in front of you, the scholarship guys. There's a reason you had to walk on and they have a scholarship in most cases. The Baker Mayfields of the world are few and far between. So,
and that's still the term walk-on for Baker Mayfield, which technically he was, is still kind of.
It was a walk-on at Tech for a little bit. But yeah, exactly. So, that whole thing is maybe a little bit blown out of proportion. And number 1, that the coaches have 100% made up their minds on something. They haven't. That's why they like spring, because they don't have to. After spring, they got months to think about it. Now, would they like to be able to say, would Steve Sarkisian like to be able to say, yes, Quinn Ewers is the quarterback, we're going to go forward? Yeah, but he doesn't have to, and it gives him more time. Would it be great if you knew exactly who everybody was going in to the fall and you kind of hit the ground running? Yeah, but that's also why you practice and why you do these things. So again, whatever happens and whatever mixing and matching you see at your respective spring game, don't read so much into it that it freaks you out. It's just a little public. This has been a public service
Yeah, I mean, I'll say on the walk-on thing, Baylor actually has a couple walk-on receivers that, could actually play and be, possibly starters if they play well enough. I mean, not just tomorrow, but in general. They've got a couple of preferred walk-ons. But, yeah, I mean, I don't think there's too many people that read too much into any of these things. I mean, if you do, then you probably need to relax a little bit and, just take yourself not so seriously, because there is, 5 months until the actual season starts and practices are actually gearing up for games. So, yeah, it's supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be just like a formal goodbye to spring, and you hope you see some good things, and you just hope guys stay healthy, and that's what we'll be looking for tomorrow.
Good stuff. Very good. That's number 2. Again, Paul?
He already did number 1.
Yeah,
number 1.
Number 1?
Yeah,
it went back to number 2.
Yeah.
There you go.
Craig
Okay. All right. Yeah. No. Yeah, and most coaches aren't going to give much away anyway, unless you have a star quarterback who's back, and he was a star back, and unquestioned. Even then, sometimes they're we got to wait to see what happens in the fall. All right, thank you very much, Emery Winter. Great stuff. Thanks to Blake Blackmar for dropping in and having the time, the energy to cook the brisket. We appreciate him. Armstrong Sims, thanks. Jack, I think, is back Monday. Paul Catalina, Craig Smoak. I'm David Smoak. The chat room, thank you. Also, those who text, thank you. And the Notre Dame fan, my man 202 is just banging away at some text messages about our segment with Notre Dame and Brian Driscoll. Good night. Have a great weekend. Spring game tomorrow, McLean Stadium at 12. See you there.
Ideal MRI is a small family business right here in Central Texas. We're open to support you while lowering the cost of healthcare bills. When you need an MRI, ask your doctor for an Ideal MRI. Visit us at idealmri.com or call us at 833-IDEAL-MRI.
Stepping into the boots of a U.S. Army officer can add confidence and leadership skills to your son or daughter's career path. See all the things they can achieve in our boots at GoArmy.com. U.S. Army Waco Recruiting Company, 254-598-8131 or 254-776-1543.
After my first car accident, I feared the biggest damage would be to my wallet. I expected a mountain of bills and a long, drawn-out process. But my Texas Farm Bureau insurance agent was there when I needed her and helped me get back on my feet and in my car in no time. Instead of a hassle, I got reassurance and a quick recovery.
Stop by and see our agents at one of our 3 McLennan County locations.
Coverage and discounts are subject to qualifications and policy terms and may vary by situation.